May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. All right. Hallelujah. Welcome. Habari, Jambo, Mimi ni Kofi, Nina Faraku Katana Nawewe, Akwaba, Etasen, Osayo, I see you, Ohio, Kamsa, Kamsamida. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, ça va? Bakwartav, Kwam Yashrel, Tada, A'anai Kofi, Mashalam Chi, Barak Allah Acham Yahava. Hello, this is Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And we appreciate it so very much today. Your presence today. Thank you for being on multiple platforms, wherever you might be. Some of you just coming out of finishing doing class and Thursday Rising Prayer, some other things. We appreciate you so very much for being on with us. And we thank you for giving your time. Thank you for those who were in support of Minister Tamara yesterday when she came on YouTube and gave an excellent word. Many of you enjoyed it, as did I, and got a lot of nuggets out of it. So we're appreciative of everybody for that. Once again, we give all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we're thankful for everything that she continues to do for the diaspora and help making sure that the health of the diaspora is, in fact, her business. So we appreciate you. We thank you. We honor you for what's going on in your lives and spending some time with us, to the moderators, to SOC, to the ministerial staff, to those who are with us for the first time. If this is one time of many, whatever the case might be, we're thankful and grateful to have you on as well. All we ask is that you remember to treat others as human beings and allow people to be able to have their context and their culture as well. We don't mind you representing your culture or questioning even a whole bunch of stuff that we say. Please feel free to. We just ask that it not just be for the sake of questioning or be ad hominem, where, hey, we're just making fun of something that we don't comprehend or something we refuse to empathize with, but let us come together and reason. And we've been doing this series for a while, and Holy Spirit kind of revealed to me today that we're kind of going to be finishing up this series. I didn't know how long. This was kind of open-ended. I didn't really know how long this series would be going on, but pretty much today, tomorrow, and then Saturday we'll have Q&A, and that'll be the end of this Code Breaker series. So, but I'm thankful and grateful for those who've been on this. This has been great. And in this Code Breaker series today, we're going to talk about today being code keepers, or keepers of the code. So in this Code Breaker series today, we're going to be talking about being keepers of the code, or being code keepers. And before we get into it any more in depth, let's say hello to everybody. How you doing, Brother Jeremy? Okay. Hello, Brother Jeremy. How you doing? IG_truth, Coco, Brother Vincent, Sister Irena, Jay. I still don't remember what the name. QUEE 8383. Joseph, her 3802, Nay, Damon. Is it Jesse? Oh, okay. Well, hello to you. How you doing? Thank you for declaring who I am before I've even said anything. If you're still on, if that's your way of saying hello, how you doing? Rhea, how you doing? Uh-oh. It just scrolled down on me. Sorry. I don't even know where we left off. If I didn't get your name, please forgive me. Let's see. William Pinkerton, Taino Indian. Hello, I'm Taino as well. How you doing? Monica, Jane Tink, Quentin Tucker, Yoruba Ikaado. Okay. What is it? Ekaado, right? Kaado, I think I'm saying it correctly. Ray Massey, how you doing? Thanks for being part of the community. It's me, Tyler, up in Canada. Awesome. Many family up there, a lot of our family up there, so to speak. Our family united together, like-minded people up in Canada. Nice to have you on. How you doing, Eugene from the D? Mike Ball on here. Uh-oh. How you doing, Mike? Sister Beverly, sent you a little thank you for you lifting this up. We appreciate you. Avis Coop, how you doing, All the Smoker? Lionheart, Janie, Sheikah Shay, Keith, Mr. Augie, everybody's coming on. Brother Omar, Minister Select Omar, user 515. How you doing? Sorry if your name is different. That's what's popping up on here. Jab the Caller, peace be upon thee. Marky, Black Steel, everybody. All righty. Okay, Lionheart. Oh, okay, that's Brother Kevin, or Minister Kevin. Excuse me. How you doing, sir? And a reminder to everybody, by the way, before we get into this about all the stuff and meetups and stuff we're doing. So as a reminder, thank you, everybody who just came off Thursday Rising Prayer. This Saturday is going to be a little busy for us, the next couple Saturdays, actually. So on Saturday, we're going to have our Shabbat Shalom service on the Kofi 40 podcast at 10 a.m. Eastern New York time. Following that, we'll have our SOC meeting, which we're asking for everybody to come on for a watch party. Particularly, though, this time when we do the watch party, it's actually going to be for the babies. Now, it'll be something that everybody will grasp something from and something that actually be kind of cool to you guys as far as what's in our community that people are putting out for the babies to be able to watch and learn and grow from. But we ask you guys to, if you got grandbabies, nieces, nephews, babies yourself, etc., invite them to come on, have them watch with you, and come and watch yourself. And we'll let them kind of have something for them. We haven't done that in quite some time. So we'd like for that to happen and like that for happen a little bit more. Following that, we're going to have, I believe, at 1 p.m. Eastern New York time. I got to double check the time, but pretty much after that, we're going to go into a Zoom meeting just for people in Georgia, right? So we can get together on not this Saturday, 21st, but the 28th. We're going to look at having a meetup on the 28th. So if you're in Georgia, you'll be getting more information. Should have got it already, in all honesty, but should be getting more information on both today as far as the actual Zoom link and the actual location that we're looking at trying to meet up. Prayerfully, you'll be able to make it out with that. I'm sorry, did I say hello to Sister Dawn and Chuck My Speaks? I'm sorry about that. Hopefully I said the name correctly. How you doing? Sister Cassandra, sorry. How you doing, Sister Cassandra, Miss Bonnet? Hopefully all is well. How you doing, doll? I am. So if you're in the Georgia area, we'll be having that the next couple Saturdays. If you're in Florida on the 28th, I think around 12 or so, maybe 12-1, somewhere in there, we're going to be having a Zoom meeting just for everybody in Florida so we can start setting up a meetup there. Others, just stay tuned. We're going to be having stuff specifically for you as well in your area trying to come out. And prayerfully, you've been getting contacted by people in your area to make sure that you're starting to become aware of the things that we're doing. Just put that out there, okay? Just in case I forget towards the end or something. Hopefully you guys are ready, are available for that. And we look forward to talking to you and hopefully meeting some of you very soon. Aman, how you doing? Earman Powell, thanks for being part of the community. The Residar, thanks for being part of the community. Alrighty, so we're in our code break. Aphrodisiac, sorry, thanks for being on. So we're in our code breaker series today. Amen, Sister Cassandra. We'll make sure we add you to the list. I'll try to, matter of fact, all right. So in our code breaker series today, what's our mission? We as servants of Christ, we're changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. That means whether we need to make sure we speak the truth about our canon, our belief system, coming together as community, making sure the diaspora is taken care of, our health, our wealth, land, education, being there for one another, making sure that we travel to see one another if we can, making sure people in the areas that they live in can be united, and making sure that people are safe to be themselves. That's kind of the basic mission in everything that we do. How you doing, Brother Alton? How you doing, Sherilyn? So anything else, if you like, you can go to the website, kofi-ofori.com. It's my name. Take out the underscore, put a hyphen there, KOFI-OFORI.com. You can also click on it on TikTok on our main page and click on the link tree and be able to find more out about that, including stuff like the 7C or the 7 F's and all that stuff that we go by, like family and foundation and things of that nature. So you can go there to look for those things. How you doing, Collins? And things like that. And if you're on YouTube, you can always look in the information for the information description with the video. Thank you, Sister Denise, for listening in as always. We appreciate you. Bakwa to top to everybody, Grand Rising. We thank you so much for being on. So in this Code Breaker series today, let's go ahead and get into it. In this Code Breaker series today, we're talking about what? Being keepers of the code or code keepers. If you're going to be a code breaker, you must be somebody who's a code keeper. If you're going to be somebody who's going to be a code breaker, you must be a code keeper, right? Now, this means what? That we must keep the code with regularity. The code comes first. You must live by a code, and the code comes first. You must live by a code, and the code comes first. Right? You must live by a code, and this is difficult for many, but you must live by a code, and the code comes first. To keep something means to guard it, means to watch it. To watch is to keep is to guard is to hold fast to protect. Remember, even the law is a keeper because law doesn't give rights, law protects rights. And as you keep the code, you must realize and recognize very quickly that as being a code keeper, when you keep the code, even when you keep it in faith, you will keep a code that a lot of people will have a problem with. The more you keep a code, especially people who don't know the code, they will try to say that you are evil, you are this, you are that. And sometimes, yes, evil codes can be kept. Things can be secretive that shouldn't be secretive. But the problem is that there's a universal code that we don't even tap into. There's a code of the diaspora that we refuse to learn about. And there also is a code in which others are not supposed to know about, and yet we are trying to be open, as we talked about with the code of the C's with the letter C. We're trying to make confidants out of constituents and comrades, and then when they show themselves to be constituents or comrades, we get angry, we get frustrated, right? But always allow somebody to be in the place that they deserve, that they've proven to be, and the code is not for everybody. Remember, we started this off by making it a point to say, hey, Matthew chapter 13. It is not, the disciples asked, why do you always speak to them in parables? Or why do you always speak to them in coded language? And Yahshua said, he didn't run away from it. He said, it's because it's not for them to know the mysteries. It's not for them to know the code. He said, it's for you to know the code. Because not everybody is a part of this. As we say this all the time, people don't like it, but this is not for everybody. And how you doing? Location undisclosed. Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing? Cream _81. You said, what code keeper mean? Things secret for the other race or make moves that they say? Well, if we're bringing the word race to it or whatever, social constructs or colonial constructs, or you're talking about diaspora, there should be some things that are coded. Right? There's some things just because, for example, there's some things just because of being on social media. If I speak about them, they'll take you down. Right? So there's certain things that I can't really address in front of others because they'll do everything that they can to break it down. How you doing, Spike Me? Right? For example, right? And if you want, if you're talking about what kind of code are we talking about, look up Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., Neely, and look up some of his work, and you'll see that there's a lot of code that's all over the place. So if you want to talk about biblical code, if you want to talk about a scientific code, like there's different codes, like there's 2 melanin conferences. The first melanin conference didn't invite anybody with melanin for decades. So people with melanin started doing melanin conferences as well. How you doing, Sister Kimberly? So much better on the television. Okay, I'm I didn't know that it can be on the television as far as TikTok. Right. So there's a lot of stuff as far as code. And how you doing, Minister Sonia? And see, if you're going to keep a code, realize this is not for everybody. Remember, even in the parable that came right before that, right? The sower, the seeds going in different places and different areas and things of that nature, right? You have the code. The seed is thrown on some ground, but it's taken by the birds and the scorched by the sun. People heard the code and they were happy, but because they didn't really take time to actually learn how to decode it and decipher it, it says that it was taken away. Right? Then it says after that, it says that the code, what is it? The second one? Oh, okay. So the second one is, those who the seed or the code is thrown out, but it doesn't really get a chance to take roots deep in anybody's heart. So therefore, vicissitudes of life come, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, since it never took root, the code never took root, it gets washed away. Then there are those that says that they're still in the wrong environment. So even though the seed was there and it was samek, it was thrown into thorny ground and everything, it should have been able to grow even still. But now it says there are vines. There are things literally there that are there to choke the life out of that out of what's growing there so that the person can't receive because you're in the wrong environment. But then there's code where it'll hit and it'll grow 30, 60, and 100 fold, depending on the ground or the heart or the passion that somebody has for the code that's given, then it will be able to move, right? So as code keepers, first things first, how often should I keep the code? Always. Right? How often should I keep the code? Always. And the person I was referring to earlier is Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. Neely, last name Fuller Jr. He talks a lot about code. Now, how you doing, Sister Rocky? How you doing, Brother Henry? And thanks for being part of the community. USMC vet. Sorry, Devil Dog. Thank you for being on. And we appreciate your service. How you doing, babe? My wife is on once again. The Honorable Maya. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. For those of you who would like to get tinctures or natural medicines that she has that are very concentrated for you to be able to get the most out of, you can check out her business and different things. Once again, in those platforms, you can also text her at this number, 410-469-1553. Again, that is 410-469-1553. Again, I say 410-469-1553. Last time, that is 410-469-1553. You can also look up stuff she's doing, just looking up at #FindBloom as well. #FindBloom. Thank you, Aphrodisiac. Appreciate you. How you doing, Grow and Glow? You said we ate we doomed for slavery because we continue. Yeah, we continue to break the code. Do I plan on ascending above the earth? I plan on making sure that I rule in high places with the Most High, according to Revelation chapter 7, according to eating the word of Revelation chapter 10, according to us making sure that we have even places to where we're preparing ourselves to do so in Revelation chapter 12, us making sure that we are aware of what's going on with the beast and the Antichrist spirit in Revelation chapter 13, therefore knowing the number of the name, which is coded Neven Kasad, and continuing in the process all the way through to the end of the word, and knowing what happened, because Revelation technically didn't start at Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, but we know that it really starts in Genesis, Parashats, Genesis 3, Jeremiah 3, Matthew 25, John 14, Matthew 24, focusing on verse 13 and 14, etc. But thank you, right? But once again, as being code keepers, how often do we keep the code? How you doing, Big Brother Taryn? So as far as being code keepers, and one love, Wagwan, how you doing? As far as being code keepers, I don't worship God, I worship Elohim, two different cultures. But once again, if you're talking about the God of the Bible, then that's what we're talking about. But once again, see, as far as being code keepers, if we can get there, right? And how you doing, Israel Whispers? Thanks for being on. As we need to be, in order to be code keepers, we must keep the code. In order to be code breakers, we must keep the code. We must be willing to keep the code. We must be willing to do what? To keep the code. And a lot of us are not keepers of the code. In order to keep a code, it means that it's to be guarded. So not everybody is supposed to get this code. Paul even says something profound that a lot of people don't like, and people don't like it when you say it. And, I hope that nobody takes this personally. I would say this all the time. If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. So if this applies to you, and how you doing, Sister Shima, and Bakwatap to everybody, thanks for being on. If this applies to you, great. If it doesn't, great. Okay. Right. However, hear what I'm about to say. See, we do this weird thing with keepers. This is not for everybody. And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. This code, this walk of life, this society that we're trying to get back into, this diaspora, even mentally, right? The spiritual diaspora, even, it is not for everybody. And if it is not for everybody, you should treat it as if it is not for everybody. This is boundaries. And this is why many people can't get what they're saying that they want to get. How you doing, Sister Samantha? Let's just be honest. This is a boundary that must be set up. It is what it is, right? You guys understand boundaries because you guys talk about Mexico and the Mexican border all the time. Yeah, you got to respect the jurisdiction, right? Like jurisdiction, like we talked about on Tuesday. Not everybody has jurisdiction to do everything. Not everybody is allowed in a court of law to be able to say this is how we interpret law. And for whatever reason, you think that because you've been taught this, I guess, but somebody taught you a long time ago that that counts. Jurisdiction counts. Law counts. When you're stopping at a red light, when the police pull you over, when you're dealing with different types of judges, are you dealing with a judge or somebody part of the legislative branch? All these different things, right? You've been taught to make sure that you know law. Some of us been taught some of that. UCC 1-308, UCC 1-207, UCC 3-603, B, 28 USC 3002 15A, the First Amendment, Second Amendment, 13, 14, 15 Amendment, this, that, etc. You say that you know the Fifth Amendment, you say you know the Sixth Amendment, all these things. But when it comes to this, all of a sudden, you don't believe that there's jurisdiction, right? All of a sudden, when it comes to this, you don't believe there's jurisdiction. You don't believe there's a code. If somebody comes into your house, right, you have to know them. At least I hope you do, right? So in order for somebody to come into your house, they got to follow protocol. There's a code. We don't do that in here. How you doing, Sister Bree? Thanks for being on. Hopefully everything's going well. Right? Somebody walks into your house, there's a code. But somebody walks into your culture and you have no code. It'll make it make sense. In order to become code breakers, you got to be a code keeper. You won't try to break somebody else's code off you if you have no code to go to. Salah. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. And how you doing? Is it France Lindolf? I don't know if it's Francais Lindolf or France Lindolf, but thanks for being on. Right? If you have no code to go to, then you won't have a code that you try to come out of. And so a lot of people don't even try to keep our code. But if you don't keep your code, hear what I'm saying? If you won't keep your code, guess what? Guess what'll happen? If you won't keep your code, what do you think is going to happen? If you don't keep your code, you'll keep somebody else's. How you doing, JC Romans? We're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to actually deal with the Roman code. And you'd be surprised how many romantic things you uphold, Greco-Roman things you uphold, things that you say you don't believe in, you uphold. I got love for those that got love for me. But Luke chapter 6, Yahshua said, if that's all that you do, he said, your enemy does that. You're not keeping our code. Yes, you should love those who got love for you, but can you have love for those that you don't even like? See, because like and love are two different words. I don't like that person, so I'm not going. I don't got to do nothing for nobody I don't even like. Then you keeping somebody else's code, and that's okay. But just make sure that you address it as I'm not keeping this code. I'm not willing to go deeper. Yeah, learning the code. It's a must. It's a standard. It's necessary. It doesn't work without keeping the code. Right? We said this before, and we say this often, right? How many people say that they've read their Bible and know it in and out, but don't know what the first word of the Bible actually is? I run into this all the time. And when you say it to people, either they get upset with you or they go, well, I got to admit, I didn't know that, but either way, I still got to keep the code. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Right? But how many of you didn't even know the first word of the Bible was Barashat? You thought it was Genesis. You swore it was Genesis, and you didn't even know what Barashat meant. And if you learn what Barashat means, you literally learn that you have to learn the Trinity. You have to learn about the Most High sending His Son already. You have to learn about the Holy Spirit leading the Son here upon the earth. You have to learn about the first character of the Aleph Bet and the last character of the Aleph Bet. All these things just because you learned the first word of the code. And once you learn what Barashat means, it means that now I got to keep it, no matter what. No matter how I'm feeling, no matter how frustrated I am, no matter if somebody's telling me I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, etc. No matter if I like who's giving the message, if I don't like who's giving the message, if I know that they speak the code, I've got to keep it. And this is why many people don't keep it. How can you keep what you don't? How can you keep what you don't comprehend? Amen. We have to align with the giver of the code, the Most High Himself, who spoke it. Thanks for being on. What is this? Kali Love. Kali loves cats, or Kali loves cats. There we go. How you doing? Thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate it. See, if you don't know what the code is, how do you keep it? How do you guard something? If somebody starts saying, "Oh no, the code says this," and you say, "No, no, no, clearly the code does not say this because of da 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 da," right? And if somebody fights you because you're keeping the code, then rejoice and be exceeding glad. It says it in the code, Matthew chapter 5, verse 10 through 12. When they try to revile you and rebuke you and they come after you and they try to make your name look bad, they did the same thing to the prophets that came before you. So if they did the same thing to the prophets and they didn't want to keep code or law back then, and they're doing the same thing to you today because they don't want to keep code or law right now, and if they're going to do the same thing tomorrow because people still have itching ears and they're going to turn their ears away from the truth, away from the doctrine, and they're going to look for something that is going to be able to scratch their ear, turning their ears therefore to fables. That's in the code in 2 Timothy chapter 4. After it says be instant in season and out of season, which literally means preach something that puts you in an uplifted position. So be instant, be ready that when you start speaking a code that's higher than somebody else, because when they're speaking a code that brings down, you're speaking a code that lifts up. So when you speak a code to try and lift them up, if they're not ready to receive the code, be not dismayed. Exactly. How can you honor the giver of the code if you are not a keeper? Speak life, speak word, speak code. Right? Death and life is in the power of the tongue, and those that love it can eat the fruit thereof. We could speak the same tongue, the same language. See, we don't even look at it that way. It's coded. We think the tongue is just talking about the physical tongue, but tongue also what? Tongue is language. So we can speak the same language, and yet I can say something to one person that could mean something completely different to another. Right? You straight? You straight? Yo, you straight? Yo, you straight? I can speak the same words. And if somebody doesn't know the code, doesn't know the mannerisms, doesn't know the mindset behind it, they might miss that I literally just said something different 5 times, right? You straight, right? It's coded, right? And in the universal code, what is the beginning of the universal code? See, because uni, a, and verse, spoken sentence, means universe is a single spoken sentence. So what was the single spoken sentence that coded everything to come out of it? Barak Allah Acham Yahava, right? That's the blessing we put upon. But you see that bara show up in there, which is what? Barashat, bara, alacham, achamayam, arat, or in beginning, alacham created the heaven and the earth. That is the code. That's the code. That's the universal statement that the universe came out of. Even the word I am is not his name, right? Exodus 3:14 tells you, well, chayach, meaning really like it is what it is. So tell them like what you've seen has sent you, or what it is has sent thee. But Exodus 3:15, my name, moreover, more importantly, more over that, right? In the code, this is more important than what you just got in Exodus 3:14. Don't just stay there. Exodus 3:15, moreover, my name is Yahweh Elohim, or you'll see the Lord God there. But whenever you see Lord God in English, they've coded it to where you don't know that that means Yahweh Elohim. So therefore, when you see Exodus 3:15, he says, moreover, my name is the Lord God. Look that up in the concordance, and you will find out really quickly that whenever you see Lord God, it's saying Yahweh Elohim, which means that Yahweh Elohim, right, is what you need to be able to keep. Why? He says, that's my name, my sham, which means my authority. Shemitic is authoritative, right? So that's my shem, that's the authority that I have. And it is that name that I was known by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he also says that is the name or what I should be presented as for all of those who are coming. All of those who are coming, all of those who are going to be in Israel or be grafted in or be in this culture or be in this belief system. He says that is the name that you should know me by. It will be a monument to me forever. So why don't we speak his name? Why don't we speak in code? Hey, how you doing, Irania? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Or Irania, I'm not sure, but thank you for being on. Thanks for being part of the community or being on, baby girl. Right? Is the code cultural, or is it the code, or is it culture? Well, every culture has a code. You said I've watched other people keep their codes, but people run from our code. Yeah, keep somebody else's. But once again, like we said, if you don't know a code, you're gonna speak a code, you're gonna defend a code, you're gonna do things with the code no matter what. Believe it or not. Believe it or not, that's what you're gonna do. So you're going to speak a code, you're going to learn a code, you're going to live a code, whether it's yours or not. That's why the saying, goes like this, either stand for something or fall for anything. Right? We say certain things like this as well. If you have you better have a vision for yourself, because if you don't, somebody has a vision for you. Or if you work harder this year for your company than you did last year, I promise you, your boss will go on a better vacation this year than he did last year. Right? And how you doing, Pothead? Thanks for being on. Right? So we don't have this code. How you doing, Miss Pierce? So if somebody says Yahweh, if somebody says Yeshua, somebody says Yahweh, someone says Yahweh, somebody says Yahuwah, somebody says Yahu, et cetera, right? We don't even know the code of where that came from. What is the dialect? And thanks for being part of the community, JMPVXV. Right? There's a non-attachment to ourselves because there's no code, there's no tongue, there's no language, there's no mindset. How many of us think it's important to speak what we spoke, and that your DNA memory begins to get access to certain things when you speak what's always been there for your people? Right? Think about that. How many of us are lacking even being able to say his name? But you say you belong to the kingdom. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't things that can be forgiven out of ignorance and things like that, and people have mistaught us, and we therefore have to just be like, we can't be forgiven, or we can't get back on track, we can't repent. What I'm saying, though, is it's going to be pretty difficult for you to live your culture and not even know the name, the authority. That's what the word name means anyways. So who authorized what it is that you even doing? Who authorized what you preaching? Who authorized your study habits? Is it you? Is it you? Did you authorize it? My son is acting like this. My son is acting like that. My son is acting like that. My daughter's acting like this. My daughter's acting like that. Did you teach them the ways of the Most High, or did you just teach them? Matter of fact, did you teach them, or did you send them to school, to school, to something that they call fish? When they just have the fish that are guided by predators. Did they put your child in the same place? Do you think that you need to make sure you send them to the same schools that have existed for centuries? Because schools have not existed basically until the 1900s. See, we haven't kept the code. The Rothschilds family, actually, no, not the Rothschild family, not the J.P. Morgan family. Which one is it? The Rockefeller family. Yeah, the Rockefeller family is the one that told you to go to school. The Rockefeller family was the one that was making sure they had somebody on the board in the NAACP. How's the Rockefeller family running the NAACP? You said what happened to TikTok? I don't know. I'm on TikTok right now. I'm not sure. Seems like we're being a little suppressed numbers wise today, but who knows? All right. But we're gonna still get this message. We're still gonna keep the code. How you doing, Sister Deja? How you doing, Talks with Toya? Thanks for being on. See, we think that school is something that's part of the code, but nobody of any culture was going to school. Not the way you see school. If you did, you paid for it. Other than that, you made sure that you were schooled in certain things and you taught your child yourself. We have this mindset that school is the norm. So now you think that school is what's going to go ahead and get you to the same place. The school was designed to make sure that there was separation in classes. And now you think if you get your degree, you'll be separated. But now we're finding out, now that we started doing that, they done changed the law again, which means it was never law, because true law never changes. Real code doesn't change, or code from real entities never changes. So now we become people because we want to keep their code. We are so quick to be like, we've got to get their degrees, but that's just a degree of knowledge. Are there not 15 song of degrees, Psalm 120 through 134? Are there not 360 degrees in a circle? Are there not levels to this? Are we not all puzzle pieces? Why do you want just one degree of knowledge and you want to go ahead and get paid because you focus your whole life to make sure that you mastered one degree? Now, I'm not saying you should never be a master of one trade or whatever, right? Right. A jack of all trades and therefore a master of none. That was the original saying, right? You should master something. You should be able to teach something. To master something is to be able to teach something. You should be able to teach something. Yes. Right, but why are you going to school to master a degree of something and you don't even know who's teaching the degree? Yeah, Masons believe in degrees, 33 degrees. A lot of times those Masons, by the way, it used to be somewhat that they had to study. Now the Masons, they can just pay to be able to go from basically you get first, second, third degree. Once you get past third degree, a lot of them just pay their way up, become 32nd degree Masons, just like that. Even in their culture, it's being messed up, right? So even when I talk to a Mason, I have to find out when I'm talking to them, I have to see, well, how much knowledge you actually gotten? Or are you just getting your next degree? Because even though I don't agree in what you're doing as a Mason, but at the same time, like in learning these secrets and codes and stuff, did you actually learn them, or did you just basically make sure that you paid and paid and paid and paid, and somebody said, okay, well, we'll let you go ahead and get to the next level? Right? Whether it be Shaq or preachers or whatever. You know, a lot of the preachers, if you look at them, you'll see a lot of preachers with rings on, right? Heavy gold rings and stuff like that. Sometimes they'll wear them in place of their wedding ring or their wedding band. You'll see that. Guess what that is? They're Masonic. Look at a lot of churches that you go to, right? So a lot of times over baptismal pools, we don't think about it, but you'll have a cross, sure, or maybe you'll have a cross hanging, or a cross that's painted into the stained glass or whatever, however they have it designed on the wall. Then, but behind it, you'll see a triangle. Behind it, you will should see a triangle. And a Mason is supposed to be more dedicated to the brotherhood or the sisterhood, but the sisterhood, Masons treat the sisters like they're under the brothers. But the Masons are supposed to be more dedicated to that than they are to anything else. Yeah, a lot of them are satanic in worship, right? So you have a lot of people who are preaching who are more dedicated to getting certain degrees of knowledge that are satanic a lot of times at the end of the day, if not 100% of the time, than they are about their own wives. Wives are supposed to be put second to being a Mason. Husbands are supposed to be second to being a Mason, right? That's what you sign up for. But you're supposed to get knowledge to help your wife or your family or community. So let me ask you this. So your code, if we're doing that, the code that you're keeping is saying that you're going to make sure that you guard something to make sure you can give your family something, even though you can't tell your family about it. And if your family has to come second and die, you'll let them die so that what needs to happen in a Masonic order can continue to be there. Whenever you hear these titles like the most reverend so and so, the most highest so and so, the most presiding prelate so and so. That's Masonic, right? And whose funeral was one of the big ones that came up that everybody was the most funeral? Was it a funeral or was it a wedding? There's something. Might have been a funeral. I can't remember who it was. Who's some of the big time? Somebody really, really, really big that passed away, and the whole world took notice, or at least a lot of people in the United States took notice. I'm trying to remember the one that's in my mind. All right, but if you look at it, oh, Queen Elizabeth. Thank you. Queen Elizabeth. When she died, everybody was the most honorable thus and such. The most honorable thus and such. The most honorable reverend, the most honorable bishop, the most honorable presiding prelate, apostle. Those are Masons. And when you listen to their sermons, or what they would call sermons, but let's just call it what it is. If you listen to their sermons and listen to the language or the code, you will discover very quickly that they're not talking about the same thing. Exactly, the Church of England, right? Even when I'm about to say King Richard, uh, um, King, what is his name? I don't even know. King, whatever his name is. Uh, King Charles, thank you. When you look at King Charles' speech, we went over this. When you look at his speech, you will discover very quickly he's using coded language. He starts talking about how he has the right to do thus and such or whatever. But you guys don't know the Church of England. The Church of England made its money off of slavery. The Church of England separated itself from the Roman Catholic Church because the Church of England really goes back to a time of King Henry VIII. King Henry VIII is somebody who wanted to be married to as many women as he wanted to be. The Pope would not allow him to because it was going to make the Pope look bad, even though the Pope was having all these babies and stuff himself. And so King Henry VIII was like, well, bump that. I'm going to go ahead and take this little Protestant thing they talking about that's cute on the streets and everything we've been squashing for you. I'm going to make it real big. And we're going to say, instead of teaching in Latin and Greek, we're going to make sure now that people learn in English, which is the language of the poor, as a middle finger to you, the Pope. And I'm going to make myself the Pope of Protestants, which means that every king and queen thereafter, King Henry, his son, his oldest daughter, and really his oldest child, known as Bloody Mary, his other daughter, Queen Victoria, all the way down in the bloodline and the crown. Everybody who's been in that bloodline, everybody who's had that crown, all of them are supposed to be the king and queens, or the Protestant popes of Protestant. So if you are in the Protestant church, you answer to a pope. He was speaking in code, but because we don't believe in he keeps his code. See, and so a lot of people were like, we're with you. We're with England in this time. We pray for the queen, right? Like, you live in places like Virginia. Virginia is not technically a state. I mean, it is a state because it's a country, but Virginia is a commonwealth. A commonwealth is supposed to be where wealth is common to the people, although the minimum wage there is still $7.25, at least the last time I checked. When I had a couple jobs over there working two jobs, I was working two jobs so I could basically kind of average out to about $14.50, and that's before taxes. After taxes, when you don't know that you can become non-citizen national, you still pay such things. After taxes, you don't realize that basically you're actually getting paid more like $3 and some change, right? So working 10-hour days, 12-hour days, 16-hour days, two times at the same time, 3 times 16, what is that? So I was working for $46, somewhere around there, a day. If that's the case, I might as well just come out 48. Thank you. You're right. 15. I don't know what I did there. 15, 18. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm sitting up there putting in, and I don't know the code. The code is that, man, shoot, you could just go hustle on the street. We get mad at the hustler on the street because he pulling $50 a day, but the hustler on the street is making more money than I am, and it's tax free. But then somebody says you can become a non-citizen national and learn how to live tax-free, and people go, "Oh, that's bad." No, see, you're just trying. Oh, they're gonna lock you. No. Like, if you're not getting benefits or privileges from the system, then you don't have to worry about dealing with it. If you work in a minimum wage $7.25 an hour job, and somebody works on the streets and they get $50 a day and you get $38 a day, who's smarter? Yeah, that's the street code, right? Exactly, right. Who's smarter in that situation? You said I'm sitting up there busting my tail hours and hours and hours a day, and they won't even let me work with so much over. Matter of fact, they're trying their best not to let us get past 40 hours because once you get past 40 hours, they got to pay you time and a half. So you're limited at a lot of these places. It used to be that, hey, even if I work minimum wage, at some point I kind of sort of get closer to y'all because at least they give me time and a half. Now they teach people specifically, if you're going to be a manager, a lot of these places, you are going to make part of managing people is making sure they don't get but so many hours. If you're getting benefits or privileges, then you pay taxes. That's honorable. We who are sovereign, we love making sure that we follow the law. So if you're going to do something that deals with benefits or privileges, and even look at a lot of stuff they're taking out your check, it's not just taxes, but I mean, you getting stuff taken now. Social Security, you have to get taken out basically until you can make sure that you're part of a community and part of some land and part of people who have something in place to make sure they can take care of their elderly, which is not actually a bad thing, right? But Social Security is the only thing that has to keep coming out, right? Other than that, taxes like depends on what benefits and privileges you go by. If you send your child to school, it's only fair if you go to a public school that you pay the public, the government, for taxes. It's only fair if you're going to make sure that you get insurance, right? Through and it's your company that has to supply the insurance. Well, then the company should be allowed to be able to tax you. That's only fair. You said the dope man was the first entrepreneur that you witnessed, yeah, and even that comes with a tax because you mess people's souls up, right? See, the great philosopher Busta Rhymes, the great philosopher Busta Rhymes once said, "For every choice, there is an invoice." How you doing, Billy Ray? Same in the hospital based on influx of patients, even if you schedule work. Yeah, right. The great philosopher Busta Rhymes, Busta Bus, right? He told you he got that'll break your neck. He got you all in check, but he told you that the government got you in check, and that really every decision you have might put you in check because he told you that for every choice there is an invoice. Every time that you make a decision, there's a payment that's due. So really, you just want to figure out who you're paying taxes to. See, a tithe, time, talent, effort, energy, food, gifts, talents, phone calls, love, prayers, and yes, even donations of financial value, right? Even offerings, and yes, even people who pay tithes. Those are all tributes. They are all taxes that are due to your king. So if you're king, if you're doing something that you're in the king's land, that's why Abraham paid a tithe to Melchizedek. And what happened? He ended up because he paid that tithe, that tribute. He was his children, his grandchildren, Israel, were able to come back to that land later on and take it on and call it Yasharal, Israel. He made a down payment, but he was in somebody else's land. And even though he came to that land and he freed people of that land and he freed his own nephew, that's what he was coming for, his nephew and his family. Still, he paid a tax. He said, I'm coming in your land. You have rules, you have regulations, you have stuff. See, I'm going to keep the code. No matter where I am, no matter what I do, I'm keeping the code, realizing that part of keeping the code means that the Most High will keep me. You said you were paying taxes in North Carolina a whole 6 years. You and your family were living in Okinawa. Yeah. And we don't know better. But I mean, in a sense, if you're because that's like, when you get that military ID, I don't know if they changed it, but like when you get your military ID, basically you can keep whatever driver's license or whatever you have, and you can stay part of the state. But that's also part of your sovereignty. Like you can actually say, I was born here. So like if I was born in Georgia, I'm not a United States citizen, I'm a Georgian. You can say that. All right. So that's actually dealing with sovereignty, saying that because you've been willing to sacrifice your life, they give you a little sovereignty. They say, okay, you're willing to be down, you're willing to pay tribute, you're willing to pay a tax that could be your blood spilled on the ground. No problem. We got you, bro. We got you, sis. Hey, keep your sovereignty, keep your state, keep what country you're connected to. How you doing, brother Cobra, big brother? How you doing? Right? Like these are things that are that we don't recognize, that we don't think about, right? See, in order to be a code breaker, you have to be somebody who keeps the code, a code keeper. But do you know the code? See, people think we're just saying stuff randomly. People think we're just saying stuff without thought process, without thinking of where we're headed to, where we're going. Everything that we say is coded. And like we said, it's not about that. This is not for everybody, because everybody does not want to participate in learning the code and then not just learning it, keeping it. How you doing, Prince? And thanks for being part of the community. I don't know how to pronounce FL_T. Okay. Thanks for being on. Right. We have to, and thanks for being part of the community, excuse me. We have to recognize that it's not just enough to learn a code if you won't keep it. Oh, praise Yahweh. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much. Right? It's more than just learning the code. You got to keep it. Grand rising to you, Brother Clem. Appreciate you. Right? You got to not just learn the code, you must keep it. If you love me, that's what the Bible says, right? Read your Bible, it'll bless you, right? If you love me, you will keep. That part is after. See, everybody likes to say, "Oh yeah, a new commandment I give unto thee," when they act like there's only 3 commandments, right? If they'll even give you that. But oh yeah, a new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another the way that I have loved you. And we go, oh, see, but he didn't say just love one another. He says love one another according to the standard that I have kept, right? Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. I come not to destroy the law or the prophets that came before it, but that it might be what? That it might be fulfilled. The word from fulfilled means enacted or even to be put in place. So he came to put an end to people being disobedient to the law, because even the law givers back then, or the law makers, or supposedly the law keepers, did not keep law. So he didn't say fulfilled as in it's over. He said it's over for people that don't keep the law. That's the context. Remember the verse after it, you cannot change one jot or tittle, right? That means the most minuscule of measurements, nor the yawn, the handwriting that's written in. Then verse 19, he said, those who break the least of these commandments are considered to be the least in the kingdom, but those who follow the commandments and teach others to do so are considered to be the greatest. And then he says, you must know the law, the code, greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, because they're supposed to keep it, but they haven't been keeping it. And here we are, all these years, a millennia later, and we're still dealing with people who refuse to keep the code. How you doing? Love, peace, blessings. Thanks for being on. You said, would that include being willing to die for others as he was willing for us? Yes. Now, remember, a lot of people try to kill him often, and it wasn't until it was time for him to give up the ghost. So don't just give up the ghost just because, right? In everything you're being led, and the blood that you carry is precious. So if you're going to shed your blood and have your blood cry up from the ground, make sure before it starts crying, it's worthy of the tears. You hear what I'm saying? Right. So young brothers out there, you just dying and you got your blood, as Lupe Fiasco taught us, you know, the streets being like a woman, and literally, you know, the tattoos of the names of all those brothers who have died are written in blood upon the streets. Don't be out here just giving your blood up for nothing. It's one of the most precious things that you will ever have. I don't care if it's full of sin and has sin curses in it. It's still one of the most precious things. That's why we don't just give away blood. Don't just be putting no needle in my arm and you're gonna take it and do whatever with it. No, it's one of the most precious things that I've ever been given. That's why I'm gonna eat clean. I got to make sure I keep that blood flow clean. Don't just be giving me anything. And if I have been given anything, let me make sure it's going correctly. And if I got a knot right in there, right? And you know, if I got something where I've got a blood clot, rather, excuse me, in there, and all of a sudden I can't get the blood to flow and something like that, don't just be putting blood thinner in there to where now my blood's gonna be messed up for the rest of my life, and therefore my body's gonna be messed up, and I'm gonna be afraid of a paper cut that could make me bleed out. Oh no, no, no. I'm gonna make sure that I go to cayenne pepper, because cayenne pepper will make sure that it thins the blood, at the same time allow the blood to go back to what it is. And if I'm dealing with any blood clots or whatever, or anything that could basically cause a cut, it also, excuse me, anything that cause a cut, it will also make sure that it clots the blood. While thinning it, it will clot it. See, I'm keeping the code in every area and aspect of my life. I'm not just doing it every once in a while. I'm doing it every single area, every single time, every single place I can be. I need to make sure that I'm keeping that code in everything. That's what we call holiness, whole, holistic, being one, being whole. Grand Rising Dwayne, how you doing? Thank you for the positive energy. Aman, we're glad you found it, Blindside. Aman, always blessed. We always learn. We're always growing, right? See, I'm gonna eat. When I eat, I don't eat just to eat. And even if I go, look, let me be honest. Be on the road a lot, be traveling a lot, got a lot of stuff to do. Sometimes I can't help it. I gotta go get some fast food. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Sometimes I get some stuff, but I know even in the fast food, okay, look, what do I want to get? Maybe I need to get this, but make sure, okay, take off the cheese, and okay, maybe what kind of bun are they using? All right, do I want a bun at all? Let me see. There like certain places I can get extra veggies, and I can just keep pounding them on. Matter of fact, hey, just give me extra, 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 and put it on the side, so I make sure I got something that's green and something that's red and something that's yellow and something that's this, so I can be colorful, like, and all that stuff. Even if I have to go into the world, I'm not of it. Be ye of the system, be ye in the system, be ye in the world, but not of it. Even when I go there, I'm not of that code. So even if I'm in there, I have to look different. And even if it makes somebody a little mad and frustrated, and they have to still put some of that stuff on there or whatever, and they got to do extra, so what? You got to do extra, but I don't fit in. I don't fit in. So since I don't fit in, it's okay. It's cool. I'm not supposed to fit in. But guess what? You're going to have to do extra when it comes to me. Guess what? Because I require extra, because I'm what? The head and not the tail. You can go ahead, and when I was the tail and I was chasing myself like a dog chasing my tail over and over again and going in circles doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's fine. You had me then, but now I do require extra, because I feed myself extra mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physiologically, psychologically, et cetera, et cetera. I feed myself differently because I'm not in the cosmos with a K, the system, the world. I'm not. I might be in it from time to time, rather, excuse me, but I am definitely not of it. I have graduated from that point in life. And guess what? People who get bachelor's degrees are allowed to look at certain things that people who don't have them are allowed to get, right? People who have master's degrees are allowed to look at certain opportunities people that don't have bachelors have. People who have doctorates are allowed to look at certain things that people who have masters in. And people who have multiple, that means they have multiple degrees in multiple places they can poke their head in to be able to look at certain things and make sure that they do. So if I have come up on some things, it's not because I'm better than you. It's because that I put some work in, because I kept the code. I learned the code that somebody else learned. And if I'm worth anything, I should turn around and give somebody that code so they can do the same thing. Don't be mad when somebody's telling you about a code that you're not aware of. Try to figure out, are they trying to lift you up through the code? You got that? How you doing, Brooklyn Butterfly? Yeah, I'm on. Clyde, yeah. Like, don't. So, do you think there's a code required to enter the mothership? So that's New Jerusalem. Well, I don't know about the mothership part. I don't know if we're doing the Black Muslim mothership. I don't know if we're doing like some Moors do mothership. I don't know. We're doing the mothership. I'm not worried about the mothership because I'm not. That's not something that's of my culture. I respect you if that's your belief system. It's just not something that I uphold. So, but I don't know which one you're talking about. But we're not. We're not. At least I'm not looking for that. So, doesn't. I know what people mean to a certain extent, even in a spiritual manner, but I don't believe there's actual mothership that's coming by and continuing to get people or whatever that we need to be in line for. That it comes from people, even I think sometimes even representing the Anunnaki and things like that, which are more so a tribe that were able to do things because they were in tune spiritually with energy and stuff like that as well. Spiritual and energy, two different things. The spiritual and the physical frequency coming together, manifesting even through melanin that happens, and some people even call it dark matter, things like that. So I'm aware of certain things that are there as far as the vibe, but yeah, okay, I get it. Revelation chapter 11, verse 12. If you want me to read it, no problem, because you said it twice. We have a whole series on Revelation, and we have a whole series on Revelation Revisited. So we've gone over it already. But if you're going to tell me that has to be a ship, right? And we're not going to go in context. That's why I gave you Revelation chapter 10, which goes back to Zechariah chapter 10 or chapter 4. Right. That's why I told you about Revelation chapter 12, which is talking about Jeremiah chapter 3 and Genesis chapter 3. I don't use verses just by themselves. I don't use anybody's verses, whether it's Quran, whether it's Muslim, Black Muslim, Sunni, Shiite, etc. I don't use anything without making sure I comprehend the context. So if you're saying there's a context I'm not getting, once again, salute to you. You have every right to do it. I'm not really going to stop everything for it, but I'll give you this much. It says, then they heard a great voice from heaven saying to them, come up hither. And they ascended to Shamayam in a cloud, and the enemies and their enemies beheld them. And that in and of itself, if you're talking about the mothership, now I would give you, I think I'll actually give you more fire to it, but I think when you study it, you'll find the context. But see, you actually should think about that as read the book of Enoch, read the book of Jasher. That's the same kind of thing that happens with Enoch. That's read what happens with Elijah, same kind of thing that happens with Elijah. Read Acts chapter 1, same thing that happens with Yahshua Mashiach. Right now, if you're going to talk about that, though, what is the context of it? See, even read in the book of Revelation within context. What is a cloud? What does a cloud represent? Is a cloud a ship, right? Or is a cloud something that's supposed to represent? See, in a dream or a vision, what does something represent even in the culture? So even within the culture, sure. We could say, like if somebody just said, oh, within this culture that I study in, it's a ship coming. But when they have dreams, what do clouds represent? What does water represent? What does the Hakwad is roll back like a scroll already? See, it's not even talking about like space. We're talking about these people are not descending just from space or other planets or a ship coming together. It's talking about literally the Hakwad, what you call the firmament, is rolled back like a scroll. And we've already seen things that happen in Revelation chapter 6 now. Revelation chapter 6, verse 9, after we've seen the four horsemen and the scrolls and the first four seals taking the fifth seal, we see that the people are looking for vengeance to happen. And Yahweh, basically, or Yahshua says, vengeance is mine. And then Revelation chapter 6, after that, the sixth seal, then we see all of a sudden this thing roll back where you're seeing all these things that are making people scared. And then we see that Israel, before destruction happens in Revelation 7, must be sealed. Right? What does that even mean? The 144,000, Israel has to first be sealed, and then everybody else who's grafted in, according to Romans chapter 11, right? Also, 1 Corinthians chapter 11 giving you some of that as well. But Romans chapter 11, now that Israel is sealed and those who are grafted in are coming along with them, now destruction happens. Now we start getting into, right, now we can start talking about this cloud, and now we can start talking about the two olive trees, and now we can start so we're talking about something without context. It's coded, right? But if that's where we are, that's where we are, right? If that's what you believe, that's what you believe. I'm just saying that's not a code that I keep. And I think a lot of people, once again, we don't recognize that everything is coded. So here we had this conversation where I think somebody just makes the assumption. And how you doing, Minister Shante? Oh, Estrus as well. Yep. So we have this thing that's coded, and it's like we don't keep our code, and we don't even comprehend where did that stuff come out of. Like we do this weird thing that, let's use the term, black, right? Black, Negro, colored, things that the West says by law is supposed to be fake people. We don't even know that we're sitting there fighting for the diaspora, Africa, indigenous, etc. Yet we're fighting for the diaspora. And when it comes to the diaspora, however you pronounce it, and all this fighting that we're having, we're using somebody else's code. We're using the code of the oppressor to try and figure out how to get free. See, the mothership is not something that's akin to our thinking. The only reason why you even pay attention to aliens like that is because aliens is a way that people who couldn't describe what you were able to do, they started saying aliens did it. And now you have a whole doctrine that's behind it. And do you support that doctrine? I'm not saying that there can't be any such thing as an alien. I don't know. I'm not intimate enough with it because I've never seen one, heard from one, talked to one. Now, some people say, no, an angel is an alien, this and that or whatever. No, according to our code, according to the Bible, that's why I say, read your Bible. It'll bless you. Angels look like us. Angels don't have wings. An alien is even a stranger, right? Or an immigrant. That's what it used to be. Now you think an alien is an immigrant to the earth. Technically you are an alien then, because your home really is not this version of the earth today. That's why a new heavens and a new earth must present itself. Isaiah chapter 65 verse 17, Revelation chapters 21 and 22, Revelation chapter 4, etc. Right? So technically you are alien anyways, but you are waiting for an alien to verify your alien status. But see, the Most High verified your alien status when he said that you are a chosen generation, you are a royal priesthood. By the way, royal priesthood in Greek and in Hebrew, both are one word, because you can't be royalty without being a priest. You can't be a priest without being royalty, right? So you're a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation, a nation unto yourselves. Psalm 122 even says you are compact. You're supposed to come together. And then what happens also? It says you are a peculiar people. You're not supposed to fit in. Why? Because you don't belong here. And if you're going to be here, you have to make sure you are a non-citizen national, even in the spirit. You can't be a citizen of this world, but right? You can be in this world, but you can't be a citizen of it. So you can be in it, but you're not of it. You are a non-citizen national. Your nationality, your nation that comes together is not something that is of this world. You see the code? You see, it's coded. You are not of this world. So you are alien. Yes. In a sense, you are Anunnaki. Yes. In a sense, you are somebody waiting for somebody to come. But see, look, angels are simply spirits. They look like us. Now, seraphim or cherubim, they have wings. How you doing, Tracy? Right? Those four beasts that represent four ways of governing people, yes, they have wings. But angels do not have wings, whether they be spiritual angels that come down or whether they be physical angels, because an angel is a messenger. So that's why when you even went to some of your churches, if you remember the code, the language, they didn't tell you what they were saying, but when they would say, giving honor to the angel of this house or something like that, when they would say that, they were talking about the pastor is supposed to be the messenger. So therefore, an angel is a messenger. That's why people will even say Marcus Garvey is an angel. Why? Because he brought a message. That's why in Jamaica and many places, but in Jamaica especially, we consider him to be a prophet because he brought a message. He talked about Cush, Ethiopia. He talked about Kemet, Egypt. He talked about Israel. Matter of fact, in our national anthem, right, in the Black national anthem, I know y'all think it's Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is a great song. And some people say it's more of a banger than the actual national anthem. But the actual red, black, and green, the red, the black, and the green, our actual national anthem, for those who identify with that part of the culture, our actual national anthem is something that's bigger than that. And it talks about the Bible. It gives you biblical verses, all that stuff. Because Marcus Garvey, even though you didn't hear him preaching, turn to Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, let us see what it says about, he wouldn't preach like that, but he's giving you a message. And he even talked about that spirituality was necessary. He said it needed to be spirituality that was real and spirituality that was for us. Because if everybody else's spirituality said that we were nothing, then we can't listen to that spirituality unless we believe that we're going to be spiritually nothing. It's a code. And how often should you keep that code in everything? That's the reason I told y'all. Like I've been, people who know me long enough or seen me before, you've seen me dressed in suits and ties and preaching in front of people and making sure that I had the haircut and making sure, because they told me I was supposed to do so. They said that's what a preacher looks like. You know, you look like a preacher. That's what they used to say. So I used to do those things. But guess what? There's also, especially if you're going to live this, you have to be an example. So why do I wear the clothes that I wear, or dress people the way that I dress, or learn languages that I'm learning, or languishing over certain things, or suffering through things, because the suffering in this present time is not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed. Because there's a little boy out there that needs to be able to see that, wait a minute, it's okay to live how you want to live by your culture, to live by this standard, and the Most High will still bless you and help you to take care of your family. I need to see that in somebody. Maybe they don't get to see it in their own house. This is why we want your marriages to be successful, because there's some people who've never seen the code kept. You grew up, a lot of us grew up jacked up. We never saw anybody keep the code of husband and wife being pre-qualified before marriage, because I'm not supposed to marry a woman and make her a wife. You know, y'all be saying this crazy stuff. Forgive me, sisters. I'm not calling you this. I'm just saying what people say, okay? Right? Y'all be saying you can't make a hoe into a housewife. You can't make a woman into a housewife, because a woman is not high enough. She's supposed to be the standard is wife. When you find her, she should be a wife. But do you know what the code is for wife? Proverbs chapter 18, verse 22. He who finds a wife finds a constitutional or a valuable thing and will obtain favor from Adon. Adon, Yahweh, the Most High, he will give you favor because of your wife. But you don't even know how to identify it. But guess what? You don't know. We don't keep the code. The verse right before it is one that you keep. And we even talked about today, but we don't put the two verses together ever. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21, right before it says what? It says specifically, um, death and life is in the power of the tongue, the language, and those that love it will eat the fruit thereof. Those that act upon it will eat the fruit thereof. Then the very next verse says, he who finds a wife finds a valuable thing, a constitutional thing, or a good thing, and will obtain favor from Adon. So if I find a wife, I find somebody who speaks the tongue, the language, the culture of my people, of my wife, of my mindset, of my story, right? Of our culture. And when I find her, right, I have found something, right, who will speak positive and love Achaba, the same love of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Achaba has those three characters in the four. So you have to have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit type love already for him, as she's his wife before she would even become my wife. So I'm taking on the responsibility of being a vessel in between her ultimate husband and her as the wife. I'm submitted to a mission in submission to the Most High. So all we're doing is her submission is flowing through my submission to the Most High. There's a code, but we haven't seen anybody keep it. So now we have sisters, according to Deuteronomy chapter 28, start going to verse 54, where you see that men are tender and unprepared in this because we don't know the code, and because we've been under attack for so long, we've forgotten it. So now women have become unprepared and feel like it even says they can't even walk upon the ground. It says they're afraid to put their feet on the ground. It says they're afraid to even walk in their feminine beauty and their divine grace and what they've been created to do. They don't even want to walk in it because it hurts, because they're so unprotected, not feeling secure, not being listened to. So now they become messed up. And so then it says your children now are being feasted upon. And it says that you'll have children and you'll never get to see them. Your children will not speak your language. Your children will not worry about these things. Why? Because you broke the code. We haven't seen an example of what it is for a husband and a wife, a husband to be pre-qualified for marriage and a wife to be pre-qualified for marriage, and us make sure that we keep the code and we don't sleep with anybody until then. And we don't keep having husband after husband after husband after husband, or wife after wife after wife after wife, because in our code, sex is marriage and marriage is sex. We haven't seen it. And since we haven't seen code keepers, how can we keep that which we've never seen? Salah. No, you're allowed to marry more than once, but you got to know the code. You got to purify yourself. So many of us are angels in disguise, much like yourself. The Bible says, find a wife, which means she's already a wife in the spirit and the law. Well, thank you, Brooklyn. Right? You see what I'm saying? We've never seen the code. And then when we give the code, everybody gets mad because you think that we're breaking the code when we're breaking their code. But remember, it is not given to them to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. That's what the Messiah said. That's what the Messiah said. If you said if you marry more than once, if you're a widow, correct? It can be if you're a widow, or also if somebody's committed adultery. It can also be if somebody has committed fornication. People think that fornication is just for the unmarried, but the word fornication comes from the word porneia or porneia. We talked about that a little while ago. I don't know if it was even in this code. I think it was when we talked about the marital code. So if you look up our playlist on YouTube for code breakers, you'll see it there. But we talked about porneia or porneia. And or maybe maybe we might have talked about the marital code. We also talked about it in our Sermon on the Mount series as well, revisiting the Sermon on the Mount. And thank you for the love, appreciate that. Thank you so much. But yeah, so when you look at the code, you'll see that porneia or porneia or porn, right, pornography even, is where you get the term really is really more of a better term for adultery. Porn is not just what you see drawn out on the wall, right? Because they had porn before there were cameras, right? But drawn out on the wall, or something that's on a VHS, or something that you used to have to look at like this, or something that's on DVD, or something that's on the internet, or something's in a magazine, etc., or in these novels. A lot of people be reading these romantic novels, and you don't realize you just basically getting porn. Like, sisters, let's be honest, a lot of your first porns, a lot of guys' first porns was like National Geographic and stuff like that, or watching She-Ra and craziness, and a lot of them still watching porn. They're supposed to be people mimicking these girls that they watch, these females they watch in cartoons, right? April O'Neil and stuff like that. You'd be surprised what guys be into. But for a lot of women, your first porn were, you know, love, love stuff, erotic love novels, or not even erotic, but just stuff that was in there. A lot of y'all knew about, what is it? Is, I don't even know what the title is. It 50 Shades of Grey, or Shades of Grey, or something like that. Y'all knew about that before it even came out in the movie theater. Some of y'all was mad because it didn't live up to the standard of the book. Right? There's a lot of black novelists, even and I like what he had to say, but even was it Tariq Nasheed or whatever? Wasn't he somebody that basically did the love novels? That's how he became big, before he started doing the stuff that was more so for the diaspora in that sense. Right. So well, I'm not gonna go through all the divorce stuff. I'm sorry. I get it. Like I said, we have a lot of this stuff already recorded. But just to kind of get into this, so porn really is a false image of marriage, because once again, in our culture, sex is marriage and marriage is sex. So sex is marriage, marriage is sex. That's what it is, right? If you sex is marriage, if you've if you just look at law, even state law, because a lot of you don't do marriage through contract between one another, which is just as lawfully binding as contract through the state. A lot of you go through the state, but even if you look at what the states say, the states don't recognize your marriage until you consummate. Even if you consummated it over and over and over again, they can't authorize it till you consummate. So if you get married to somebody and y'all never have sex after you got walked down the aisle, and it's been like a few months, and somebody's tired of it, and they go before the judge, they say, "Hey, this person won't have sex with me," right? The judge will annul the marriage, because if it's not consummated, it never existed. It's lawful. It's there to protect your rights. See, sex is supposed to be something that's only with one person, and somebody we should have been taught about marriage since we were a little baby. And since we were never taught about marriage from birth, we were taught get married and then honor your wife, but we never realized, should we honor wives who are already wives before they get married? But the state knows. Look up your state constitution regarding marriage. Look at the UCC regarding marriage. See if you have to consummate marriage. Look in your contracts that you're signing. You're signing up to the state, right? That's why you go to the state. When you sign up to the state, look at what you signed up for. They tell you, yeah, you got to consummate that thing. If it's not consummated, if you don't have sex, we don't count it. You think that marriage is, now you have to put in work to make your marriage, or the two of you becoming one, work. So you need to put in work, right? But you think you're putting in work to make your marriage work. You think that your marriage is, and it is whole, right? There's holiness that comes out of it, but all that stuff, it comes out of fruit. When you guys have decided to become one, when you become one, you have fruit. Fruit gives seed. So everything that you give birth to, not just your children only, but everything you give birth to, comes from the tree. You being two that we become one, rooted and grounded in the Most High, in His heart, being men and women who become one man after His own heart. Yeah, we were taught backwards. See, so in becoming code breakers, you got to keep it in everything, including now, if you learn the code, part of keeping the code is pass it on. But my child, they're 20 something, they never gonna get pass it on. Well, I've been in church my whole life, and I don't know. I've been in church. I'm 50 years old. Everybody's around me is doing this. I might as well still go and celebrate Christmas. I don't want to be alone. This and that. Pass it on. Let them know, and let them know why you're coming out of it, and get with like-minded people who live near you and are willing to talk to you and call you and have conversation, and not just make this a virtual thing, right? Find a standard that you can understand. Find a standard that's greater than yourself. This standard is not like the world standards. See, the code is, the problem is that you don't realize that we're reporting. See, we come to this port. We lived in this port before. We went somewhere else, and to another port. We found out that it's better somewhere else. And so now we come back and report to you what we learned at the other port. And you can come on the same vessel called the word of Yah, the same vessel, Yahstel, the same vessel, be grafted in the same vessel. You can get on this vessel, the kingdom of heaven, and you can flow to where you might be in this system, but you don't have to be of it. You can come on out. Right? You can come out of this. What's stopping people is not, is it is it righteous? What's stopping people is, can I do it? Once again, yes, you can marry again. You need to be, see here. Okay, like I said, I'm not going to break down marriage per se, right? We have a lot of videos on marriage, including the ones that I just mentioned on the playlist, right? So you can go back and even on the playlist, just type in, or go on YouTube for us and type in marriage, and something will pop up about marriage, right? So I'm not going to go deep into marriage as far as that today. That's not exactly what today is supposed to be about. But recognize a lot of you never had a lawful marriage concerning the word of Yah, anyways. Yeah, there is ceremonial law. There's law, period. There's just law. And if we follow law, we should follow it. So whatever ceremony you come up with, it should follow law. That should basically be the basic principle. But as I was saying, if you look up marriage, a lot of you have not been married lawfully anyways. That's why we got to make sure we start getting back to the mindset of it. Right? Like, so a lot of people have never come out. Now, a lot of people, when you got married, once again, you thought marriage was I date for a long time. By the way, is dating something that's lawful? You see what I'm saying? A lot of people never even got into actual marriage. Is dating lawful according to the Bible? Well, how can you be married if you don't date? There's a way to, but you're supposed to be taught how from birth. So you don't know how to identify a husband or a wife, the knocking ceremony, any of these things, right? Behold, I stand at the door and knock. That's part of the ceremony to see. That's part of what we do ceremonially, traditionally, to see if the families will even agree to the betrothal of a husband and wife before the wife begins to prepare herself specifically for this husband, and the husband begins to prepare a place for her to stay and make sure he starts learning about her and literally building a house that's about her. So while building his house, that's why no man knows the day nor the hour, and even the son doesn't know the day nor the hour except the father, because you would build a mansion, which is an attachment to your father's house. You would have already been given your inheritance. You would have had some life experience. You would have had your own business and stuff. You would have found your wife while doing your work. You would have talked to her and connected. You would have went to her house, or with your father being there, or somebody from your family to make sure that they were there, to make sure that they would talk to the father of the bride. The mothers and fathers of both sides would have conversation. Then basically, if it was agreed upon, she starts to prepare herself for you by being taught all about you and being ready for you. She's already a wife. Now she just needs to learn you, right? So she's learned the wife part, but she just needs to learn you. And that's going to be something that's going to happen no matter how long you've known each other. That's going to be every day for the rest of your life. Meanwhile, the son is going to go back to the father's house, right? Beloved, which means David or David, beloved, right? Judah. But anyway, that's he talking to his wife. So, beloved, let not your heart be troubled. Right? If you believe in the Father, also believe in me. In my Father's house are many mansions, many add-ons, attachments for y'all to come in. If it was not so, I would not have told you. I'm going to leave. It's going to look like I'm going away, but I promise you, I go to prepare a place for thee, so that where I am, you can be also. So now, Matthew 25, get that oil in your lamp and prepare yourself for me. Learn of me. For the rest of eternity, we'll be together, but take this time out to learn of me, even though we're not physically together in the New Jerusalem right now. Still keep learning of me, right? So that you'll be prepared for when I come back looking for that oil to be in your lamp, right? With the knocking ceremony again, where he's coming through the door, right? Because remember, they all go in and then they leave. The door is shut to those who didn't have oil in their lamp. Now, in the meantime, the son is building a house. Tell me this: if somebody's building a house for somebody based on the instructions from the wife, who he's not with yet, based off the instructions from the mother, or the soon-to-be mother-in-law, the soon-to-be father-in-law, all this stuff, he's building a house based off the instruction, and his father is there telling him, oh yeah, well, if she likes this, you need to make sure she got a garden, and if you like this, you need to make sure she's got these rooms, and if she likes this, hey, I want a bunch of grandchildren, so you have to make sure they got a place to play. And if if she's like my wife, I heard she's like my wife, your mama, and your mama likes to cook, so make sure that kitchen area is looking like this. He's telling him all the things, and then once the father says that, I believe you're ready to go back and get my daughter-in-law, he treating her like his daughter. He's gonna make sure his daughter's gonna live well because he wants his generations that come out of his son and his daughter to live well. So once he realizes that everything's ready for his daughter, then he says, go get her and bring her over here, or we'll have a ceremony, if you will, but go get her and bring her over here. And now you guys can become one. And when you become one, the father of the bride goes in and grabs the sheet, and which has the semen, which is blood, and the hymen, which is broken, the residue, which is blood, right? That's upon the sheets, and he brings it out in front of everybody, and everybody celebrates the fact that the two have actually become one. Now I know that might be a little far for people in this day and age now, right? But I'm just saying that's part of the ceremony, right? So when I'm saying a lot of us have dated, to date literally means to have an expiration date. If you go to the store and you're looking for any dates in the store, you're looking for a day something's supposed to happen and something's supposed to expire. If it turns out to be okay, right, past the date, you might keep on going. And that's the mentality that you have when you go out on these dates. You get with people and then you say, okay, cool, we'll go out. I'm not even really feeling them like that or whatever, but it'd be nice to go out with somebody. Maybe I'm lonely, this and that or whatever. And so now you go out on a date. And when you go out on that date, you're like, oh, okay, I guess it didn't really expire. Maybe the expiration date was wrong in my mind. Let's try it again. And then let's try it again. And then, let's sleep with each other. Because you're not, this is what they say, right? You gotta inspect the goods. You can't just get with somebody and you don't know if they can even do what you want to do. All this stuff that we hear, right? And I'm not even, and that's why once again we got to teach people how to be husbands and wives, and people are supposed to tell people the truth. So the people are like, well, how do I know if they don't have an STD? Blah blah blah. Well, I get it. See, nowadays it's a conversation we're supposed to have, but were we supposed to have that conversation if people weren't having sex before marriage? Of course not. But because people do so much now, it's hard to be able to get with somebody. Nowadays, you got to go and you got to get your, hey, let's get an AIDS test, let's get an HIV test. I want to see on paper that you don't have nothing. And you're not necessarily wrong for doing so nowadays because not everybody knows what marriage is. So I can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into that. But you can see there's a difference between what the Bible declares marriage is lawfully and what you think legal marriage is. See, everything that's lawful is not legal, and everything that's legal is not lawful. We got to put those puzzle pieces together. I'm sorry, babe. You said marriage is serious commitment. You'll hesitate to leave a house you built. Family involved in the process, all that. Or I'm sorry, I didn't see the rest. I think you're saying process. But yeah, yeah, like that's very important. That's commitment. You got to stay committed to it no matter what. See, once again, how often am I supposed to be a code keeper? How often do I keep the code? I'm not Sister Cassandra. Be safe out there. How often am I supposed to keep the code? Forever. Mark 10:1 says, whosoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery against her. Yeah, within context. Yeah, if you just divorce your wife without a reason, sure, exactly. Right? If you divorce a wife, once again, did you marry a wife? See, even in our culture, people don't get it. After the ceremony I just talked about, see, I got to stop because we'll just make this marriage, and that's not what it's supposed to be today. But I don't mind it because marriages are important. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Like, real talk, we had this weird belief system. We have this odd belief system that is like, we can get married. It's like when we eat, I say this all the time. You eat tons of sugar in your food, but you pray over it and you say, well, since I prayed over it, the Most High make sure I stay healthy. But the Most High already instructed you how to eat. So why would you eat, why would you eat in a way that's going to make you unhealthy and think that your prayers will cover your disobedience? It's the same thing. Like, we had this thing about marriage where it's like we think that we married under the correct thing, and the Most High was with the marriage. In our culture, you don't even get a certificate for marriage. Remember, the bed sheet is the covenant. The contract, whether verbal or otherwise, the contract of marriage that's given out is literally that when you betroth. So when you're betrothed to each other, even though you still won't be married, when you're betrothed, when the families and everybody have agreed upon what's going to happen, and she starts preparing herself, he starts preparing herself, you guys are already married. This is why Joseph, who had never slept with Mary until she had Yashva, right? Until she has a manava at Yashva, right? Joseph was going to put her away. That means that they were already considered to be what? On paper, they were already betrothed, which meant that they were already contractually obligated to each other, even if they had not slept with one another yet or had lived under the same roof. So he was going to put her away while she was still a virgin, which means he had never slept with her, but she's saying she's a virgin, which means that what? That means that he thinks that she's cheated. She's broken the covenant, so therefore he can go get the divorce. But then he finds out in the dream what? That that's not the case. And so he stays with his wife, and then he's able to enter into covenant with her later on. I don't know. Like I said, we've talked about this. I'm not going to turn this into marriage only. I apologize that I won't be able to. Like I said, we have a whole bunch of content on marriage. Please feel free to go on YouTube. There's so many of them. Literally, if you just typed in hashtag FindKofi or our channel and typed in marriage next to it, or if you just went to the channel, and what you can do if you're on TikTok, just go on TikTok, click on the link tree on our on our page, and click on hashtag FindKofi. It'll immediately take you to where you can be on YouTube. Hopefully you like what you see there and you can like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification tab. So there's other videos come up, you can join with us. Right. But see, even divorce has to be taken seriously. Remember that divorce, even divorcing from the code, to divorce even from the code means literally divorce comes from a word talking about basically going AWOL, or basically like leaving your people out there to fight for themselves. And that was something that was punishable by death. See, if you get a divorce, you must recognize that that's death. If you're going to divorce, leave somebody out there to fight the enemy by themselves, then you better have a reason for allowing that person to die, because what's happened is that's why a divorce hurts. Even these people, I'm so happy, blah, blah, this and that, or whatever. Like these people be frustrated about divorce because nobody gets into a marriage hoping for divorce. People who date do. That's why you your prenups and all that, right? But nobody gets into a marriage hoping that it falls apart. It hurts. Why? Because it was two that became one. And when one half of you die, like think about it this way. If somebody was walking, what would you call this medically speaking? Medically speaking, if somebody was walking one day and all of a sudden the left side of their body stopped working, what would you call that? I'm talking about the whole left side of their body stops working. What would you call that? You call it a stroke. They're dying. A half of their body has died. Half of their body is paralyzed. Some people heal from it, but you can still see signs that they had it. Have you ever seen somebody with palsy that happens in the face? If y'all watch wrestling before, good old JR, Jim Ross, right? His mouth and stuff wouldn't move. Sometimes people would even make fun of it, right? But his mouth wouldn't move. Now his whole face pretty much is paralyzed. So he can be happy and be talking to you and making a joke, but because he can't really move his face muscles like that, Bell palsy, thank you. Because he can't use his facial muscles like that, even though he wants to be connected to you, there's a disconnection. There's a sign. Even though he's alive, something died. Well, Candy, like I said, there's levels to it and stuff. We have stuff on marriage. You can feel free to ask. If you'd like to even ask some questions about it, one-on-one coaching, life coaching, marital coaching, we do all that stuff as well. But I got to try to kind of get back to the actual subject. So I think we put enough nuggets out there and things. But if I be honest, a lot of the stuff, once again, when it comes to marriage, we're not actually talking about lawful. Like, for example, what if you had to fight by yourself because your spouse isn't fighting with you? Well, does the husband feel respect? Because husbands need respect, number one need. Does the wife, if the wife's not fighting with you, does she feel secure? Because that's her number one need. What's the wife's number two need? She needs affection. What's the husband's number one need? He needs sex. So if she's not getting security and affection, she probably gonna stop giving sex, which means he's gonna feel disrespected. If he's not feeling respected and he's not feeling like he's and I'm talking about husbands, not boys disguised as men, or men disguised as husbands. Like I said, like for the wife, there's levels to it. We are not marrying husbands. We're marrying men and hoping we can turn them into husbands. So there's a lot of levels to it, right? But once again, Our number one needs are going to be different. And even just as far as how men and women respond are different. If you get in the fight, you might think that your man is not fighting for something because he's not extroverted in it. But when men usually, not always, there's exceptions to every rule, but usually when a man is trying to figure something out, he does it introverted. When a woman tries to figure something out, she does it extroverted. So the woman, the wife will begin to say, hey, all these things are happening and this and that and all this stuff. She'll start speaking everything onto the atmosphere so she can try to process it and even have other people at least respond to her so she can kind of internalize it. With men, it's the opposite. We see our wife saying things out loud and we internalize it. We're introverted, but then later on, we'll come back with something extroverted. We'll speak out, but we want to make sure that we gather it together. So now you get two people, if they're not aware, that you're having a fight that's going back and forth. Well, he won't do this and she won't do this. Well, she's always yelling out. No. She's speaking out as a woman, hoping that maybe you'll even just say, okay, I can see where you're at, something, right? And then she'll be able to internalize what's going on. Right. But as a man, you're like, he's not even worried about it. He doesn't say anything about it. Well, when you state your stuff out, he's taking what's extroverted and trying to bring it inside internally so he can later on tell you in a specific manner, extroverted. Right. That's how men and women usually function. There are exceptions to every rule, but that's going to be usually what happens. Right. So now if you have two people who aren't aware of that. So like I said, you're obviously going to have problems. What about 5 love languages? Do you even know if somebody feels love by the way that they speak? Somebody feels love by the way that they act. Somebody feels love by receiving gifts. Somebody feels love by the way that you spend time with them. Somebody feels love by how much physical touch you give them. So if you got somebody that likes physical touch, right, you might assume that they like you to be around them all day, but their love language might not be quality time. So they might like when you're around them, like, yeah, let's get it on. All of a sudden they want to jump on you, this and that. But outside of that, they don't really want to be holding your hand like that or doing stuff like that. So you think, oh, they don't like me, right? But if you have somebody whose love language is quality time, guess what, physical touch person, you're gonna have to give them physical touch and quality time. You're gonna have to figure that out. Now, sometimes you need to be left alone if you're introverted, right? You might want to be left alone, and they're gonna have to learn that too. But if they're gonna leave you alone some days, you're gonna have to give them physical touch some days. So there's a lot of stuff. But like I said, I can't. That's why we do coaching, because some of this stuff we shouldn't even talk about publicly, and some of this stuff I wouldn't know unless I knew exactly what was going on. But I'm just trying to tell you, there's levels to it. We don't recognize what comes with marriage. We haven't been trained for marriage. Nobody sat us down and told us this happens. We don't have boundaries. A lot of people, even if you like physical touch, let's say you have two people that like physical touch, but you never discuss what it is that you like in sex. Those of you who have experienced it. So you don't even have an honest conversation about what's going to go on. And hey, can you do this? Can you accept this in the bedroom? Can you accept it? Like, hey, when you're walking around, I might, do something like that to you as you walking past or something, and that's something that I like or whatever. Is that something you're okay with? So those things start happening, and you think you're dealing with a sexual deviant, and you're just dealing with somebody who's being honest about who they are. And now you start using the word against them. You're a sexual demon. You're a devil. That's demonic. That's spirit. And no, he's a man. His number 2 need is sex. No, she's a woman, and her love language is physical touch. But also physical touch, she likes what? Since she's a woman, her number 2 need is affection. So don't just be touching her without making sure that you touch her in manners that turn her on. See, I'm gonna stop. We talked about this stuff before, right? So there's other stuff. Some of y'all ain't even ready to go there. I'm just telling you, like, you got to be ready for that. Yeah, divorce is definitely rough, especially when you got children. It's divorce, it's death. When your children don't see daddy around the house and mom around the house as much, it's like they've died. So we have to keep the code. But in order to be code keepers, you've got to teach somebody the code. And in order to teach somebody the code, masters of code are people who can teach it by living it as well. And we have not seen people live this code. We have not seen people that even when people say all manner of evil against them, you still forgive and you keep on pushing. You haven't seen it before. Right? Some of us have never been somewhere where somebody makes just tell like is willing to tell us out of love. Like this might be the reason why you've got kicked out of place after place after place after place and family member after family member after family after family member. See, you keep going everywhere and dealing with the same issues, and you won't deal with the fact that maybe there's some code here that if I would learn how to be able to use it or utilize it or just revere it, respect it, maybe I would be able to get different results. But oh, everybody in my family, like there's differences. Like, look, there's some stuff I'm a black sheep on before I was even born right? That cause, but there's some things where there decisions I've made and things that I've decided to like, so I can't be mad and be like, well, my family doesn't even invite me to anything. Well, I've made a decision to not go to a lot of things they do because I don't do those things anymore. So I'm not gonna be like, oh, they just hate me. No, they don't just hate me. Like sometimes it's because I've separated myself from things. And if I don't talk to them as much, why would I think that they would talk to me? It's a two-way street. you know? Like Buster Rhymes once said, for every choice, there's an invoice. For every choice, there's an invoice. For every choice, there's an invoice. Right? Even when it talks about going back to marriage a tiny bit, but we can use this overall. It says, even if you have a non-believing spouse, it can be the behavior of this believing spouse that causes the other one to get back in order. The behavior. What is the behavior code? What's the code for your behavior? See, if they cuss you out and your thing is, well, you cuss me out, so you know what? I'm not going to take disrespect. I'm going to cuss you back out. Then, yeah, they get to say stuff to you like, because given it shall be given unto the Allah's measure, pressed down, shaking together, and running over, shall men, people, human beings, given to your bosom. For the same measure that you meet, whatever you put out, it shall be given unto thee, right? So if they cuss you out, sure, you say, I'm just going to give back what you gave me. But if you give that back, guess what happens? They get to give it back too. And they get to go ahead because you say that you live by a certain standard. Remember, the verse before it says, judge how you want to be judged, condemn how you want to be condemned, right? And forgive in the manner you want to be forgiven. So if you give it out, it shall be given unto thee. So when you start cussing the other person back, not only do they get to cuss back again, but you put them in a position now to where they get to say, well, hold up, don't you say in your code? And you don't like it when they do that, but they say, don't you say in your code that you're not supposed to cuss me out? Yeah, but you cussing me out and you being disrespectful. If you act like them, that's what it says earlier in Luke chapter 6. If you love the way they love, or you only have love for people that got love for you, what thank have we had? What thanks have ye? Why are you talking about how grateful you are to be in the kingdom when you act like people that aren't in the kingdom? What thanks have ye? If you could only give to people that you know will give back, what thanks have ye? You're on the same level. You're speaking the same code. You're speaking outside of the kingdom code, of this cultural code. And we got a lot of people out here to tell you how thankful they are to act just like everybody else does. Man, I'm so tired of these people. I'm so glad they don't have to be forgiven. I'm so glad. What you talking about? Romans chapter 5, verse 8. We're going to talk about the Roman code tomorrow, which is basically going to be us talking about Roman Catholicism and the the Roman road that we've done before for those who know what I'm talking about. But Romans chapter 5, verse 8 says that Yahshua demonstrated his love to us. He commended his love to us that while we were yet sinners, he died for us. Right? Now, be holy, hakodash, whole in your response. One, aleph in your response. What else does it say? What did we talk about earlier? I give you a new commandment, that you love one another the way that I have loved ye. And don't love one another according to your standard. Do it the way that I have loved ye. By this, by the love that you give and keeping the code at all times, the actions that you show, by this will men know that you are my disciples. You are disciplined under what I do. And then the next chapter, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And then the next one, I am the vine. What is it? Hold on. Let me make sure I get that right. I just said it. I feel like I said that wrong. Give me a second. Sorry, y'all. I think I said that wrong. Yeah, okay, I'm right. I am the true vine. That's what it is. I am the true vine because he is the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. So I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. See, we talking about his love, but we don't want to be in him in the code. Right. Well, he was always the temple, right? We can become the temple. He was always the temple. And the temple wants to live, or the covenant, the son even, S-O-N, he wants to live inside of us. Thanks for being part of the community, Marsha and Shy Girl. Thank you so much. And how you doing, Sister Eric, if I didn't say so already? And thanks you, NX Beauty, as well, and Anthony and Silver Wordsmith. Right? That's why he cursed the fig tree. Why was the fig tree cursed? Code breaking. Why was the fig tree cursed? Because it didn't produce figs. Not just because it didn't produce fruit. May I give you a suggestion? If something is a fig tree and it produces oranges, it's not a fig tree anymore. So its essence, if it starts off as a fig tree, that'd have to be a miracle of miracles, right? But if something is a fig tree, but it tries, unless something is grafted into it, if something is a fig tree, it should be giving figs, right? So the Most High didn't curse it because it didn't have roots. He didn't curse it because it wasn't its season. He didn't curse it because it wasn't it wasn't tall enough. It didn't curse it because it didn't give shade. He didn't curse it because it wasn't designed to give fruit. He cursed it because it was designed to do something and it wouldn't do what it was supposed to. In other words, when we are designed to do something and we will not do it, we are cursed. Now, what's more than likely what happens as well, even though there can be all types of stuff that happen, but let's dive into this a little bit. I'm not the greatest of scientists and I'm not the greatest of herbalists, right? But maybe there was a possibility that because somebody planted it in a place it didn't belong, it never had a chance, right? If it's supposed to produce fruit, right? It was not a male, right? Because there's male and female, even in trees, even in vegetables, right? Amon, don't bury your gifts. And he was hungry at the time for something that should have came from it, right? Something should have been offered, and it wasn't in position to offer anything, right? But he came looking. Now, it's because of where it was located, it could be possible that they never made sure somebody didn't have the knowledge. They planted something somewhere without the knowledge of it. And so now you have something planted somewhere outside of its culture or away from anything that it could produce fruit with. And so now here it is all on its own, not producing anything. It was cursed regardless. It's better that it was shriveled and died than it was to have nothing to procreate with. It's not great that anybody would be all in one. We call that alone. If it could get something from male, if it said he cursed it because it didn't produce something, it didn't produce the male seed or something. No, it said it didn't produce fruit. Therefore, it was a catch this. It was something feminine that needed the help of something to make sure it was there. And all of us have masculine and feminine in us. Right. But how many of our sisters, going back to woman's number one need is what? Security. How many of our sisters feel unprotected, are always scared that when they hear a guy start talking on, if you hear a man say something like this on social media, you usually kind of like, oh, I hope this isn't going to be bad. When you hear a man say, you know, I want to talk about relationships. Some sisters are like, oh, what are you about to talk about? You know what I'm saying? Because we don't even secure them in a place of making them feel like it's okay for them to be their divine selves. Right? We don't even make them feel like it's okay to be a sister, achat, or akat, some of you would say. So a lot of these sisters are walking around feeling cursed because they're not in an environment to where they even feel safe enough, let alone to where they're blessed enough to have anybody who will come together besides just giving them seed for children, give them seed that makes them feel like they can follow their vision and their dream and their heart. As a husband, it is my responsibility to make sure that my wife can be able to do what she's called to do rather than to do what she has to do. This life is about keeping the code and knowing about the code of life, knowing about the code of the word of Yah, knowing about the code of who we are, and breaking out of codes that are captivating, but not necessarily um, freedom giving. How can you be a code keeper if you've never kept something? That's a big part of it right there. Let's keep it 100. A lot of you never had to keep anything. Everybody doesn't do that. But when I look at your life, some of your lives, and when I look at them, let's just be honest. If I were to look at some of your lives, we were to do, some of us, we would do the coaching, life coaching, marital coaching, etc. And we started getting into the nitty gritty. Let's be honest. Some of y'all have never kept anything in your life. Some of you, as soon as your job situation gets bad, you out. I'm sorry, TikTok, I'm going to disappear just for a second. Oh, okay. Thanks, mate. I don't know. Sorry. Oh, gosh. Let me see. You're right. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to pause on you. Salah. All right, we're back. Sorry. I had to answer something real quick. So, we got to get to a situation where we recognize this. Thank you for the love, Chef. Appreciate you. And if Sister Star and family, everybody else is watching, thank you all too. We got to get in a place where we don't even think about that. Keeping the code in everything that we do. You know what your wife will respect more than you paying the bills? Keep the code. You know what your husband will respect more than anything else? Just keep the code. When you're in the middle of an argument, don't start telling somebody something that they did 10 years ago. Keep the code. Keep it about now. Oh, okay. How you doing, Sandra? Thanks for being on. Is it Sandra? Sandra Mejia, I believe. Right? I don't know if I've been saying that right or not. Right? But keep the code. Keep it about what it's about. Make the main thing the main thing. Right? If it's about tu hermano, make it about your brother, and that's it. If it's about tu hija, make it about your daughter, make that it, right? If it's about your familia, right, whether you're talking about Kiswahili or Espanol, like make it about that. Whatever it is, make it about that. Like we don't even keep code in conversations. That's why people use ad hominem. Ad hominem is something everybody says shalom, hey, what's up, family, right? We don't even keep code. And my wife says shalom to you guys as well. We don't even keep code when it comes to this stuff. We don't care about this. We don't honor this. Right? Keep the code. Keep it 100. Keep it a buck. Keep it whole. Keep it what it's about. Wow, praise y'all. And how you praise y'all, Cozy. Like keep it a buck, keep it 100, keep it about what it's supposed to be about, how we're supposed to actually operate in it. Don't make it about all this other stuff that we fighting about. If we're trying to get to one thing together, why is it that black women ain't nothing and black men ain't nothing? Keep the code. We say this stuff, but we don't believe it. We make fun of it now in the movies, but for real, we all we got. If somebody else want to come in, fine, but it's got to be established on what we establish. Oh, you guys got snow where you are? Cool. Right. How you doing, Sister Judith? You got to be in a position where you got to recognize, right? How you doing, Nancy? Like, keep the code everywhere that you go. We'll have some stuff popping up. Just stay connected, right? But keep the code in everything that you do. And when you find code, make sure it's something you keep. When you find family that keeps code, make sure it's something you keep. If you find teachers that keep code, make sure it's something you keep. See, when you find husband, make sure it's something you keep. When you find wife, make sure it's something you keep. When you find children of the Most High, Romans chapter 8, verse 19 tells you that there's a difference between creatures or creations and the servants of the Most High, the children of the Most High. Not everybody is Yahweh's child. That's why, once again, read your Bible. It'll bless you. This is not for everybody. I don't expect, right? If I take my son out somewhere, we playing basketball, and they cursing on the same court that we have access to or whatever, and be like, yo, y'all can't bring that stuff over here, right? But if they're doing it over there, I'm not responsible for going over every time I hear them say a cuss word 2 basketball courts away to say, hey, y'all stop cussing, right? But if you bring that over here, I got to protect this. We keep code over here. I don't expect non-code. It's not something that bothers me. Every time I'm walking through the mall and somebody curses, I don't have to stop and be like, hey, now if I'm led to say something, let's be led, and make sure you're led, because you need to make sure you're using exactly what the Holy Spirit gives you, or you might not be ready for what the outcome is, right? However, just because I hear somebody cursing in the mall doesn't mean I stop everything I'm doing and say you're cursed. But if you're around my child, yes, I got to keep the code. See, the code is there. See, the code is there. We've been talking about code for this whole series. What is law? Law gives rights. Law protects rights. What is kingdom law? What is marital law? What is natural law? What is universal law? What is substantive law? What is procedural law? What is remedial law? What is common law? What is admiralty law? What is maritime law? What is law of equity? What is public law? What is private law? Etc., etc., etc. What is the law? It's unique. Is it unique? I think I just realized unique. Is that what it is? Unique or unique? I think I just got that. Okay, Ladybug, and welcome if I didn't say so already. Right? If we're not careful, right, we don't live by law. See, watch this. We live by laws, but they're not even legal. Or, I'm sorry, we live by legal law. We live by what's called legal. We don't really live by laws in this system. What is legal and illegal is more mindful for you guys, or is more on your mind rather than what, or your mind. Sorry, you are more mindful of what is legal than you are of what is lawful. Hey, how you doing, Ishman? It's. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Or Ejai? Is it Ejai or Eg? Is it Ejai man or Eg? Eg man Wagunde? The discipline, getting reminded of what I must keep my invisible fence. Yeah, and the law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. Laws are boundaries. You have the right to hurt somebody. There's a boundary, though, that says that maybe we should stop you beforehand. Or if you succeed in hurting somebody, there's a boundary there that says maybe we should put you somewhere where you can't hurt anybody. Laws don't give rights. Laws protect rights. We don't want rights protect. We don't want to live by what protects us. It doesn't make sense. See, and so if you're going to keep the law, if you're going to be a code keeper, then you've got to be somebody willing to protect the code, because when you protect the code protects you. Y'all ever seen in these movies? A lot of these movies, they'll always have this trope where somebody's got a Bible and they always keep like a Bible right here, and somebody shoots them, and the bullet somehow, whether it's something in the Bible or the pages itself, something miraculous happens, and they never get shot through the Bible, right? Right? But that's a principle that you can live by. Keep it. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. If you are holy, you will be whole. If you are holy, you will live whole. You will be one. Be ye whole. Be ye complete. Do everything like I do everything. Be ye holy as I am holy. Let's be honest. The problem is not even that you can't keep it. The problem is you don't like command. Now, if somebody gives you command, you cool. But if somebody says follow command, where you at? Follow command. Where are you at? Right? I'm a man of authority because I'm a man under authority. I know what it is to be in the military. And if the general says, if the admiral says, if the captain says, if the captain 06 says, if the right, if the colonel says, if whoever says, right, if they speak, if sergeant first class speaks, if staff sergeant speaks, if master gunnery sergeant speaks, if master chief petty officer speaks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? If sergeant major speaks, if chief warrant officer speaks, right? If or warrant or chief or whatever, right? If they speak, if they say something, I obey. I'm obedient. I know how to keep command. And when I learned how to keep command, even though I was rough for me, I had to get in trouble a few times to learn how to keep command. But once I learned how to keep command, I've always kept command. And anybody that I'm under, I listen for command. I don't want to hear that. Anybody environment I walk into, I look for command. If somebody invites me to a church today and says, we'd like for you to preach, I'm going to ask them, hey, I'm not going to wear a suit and tie. Is that okay? Like, is it all right if I wear my clothing? I do have some robes. Do you want me to wear my robe? I'm going to ask questions because when I come in there, I'm going to do what? I'm going to be under command. Now, I'm going to let them know this is what I preach, this is what I teach. If you guys say Jesus instead of Yahshua, I'm going to make it a point to say that who we call Jesus, but his original name is Yahshua. But I will say Jesus if that helps your parishioners to be able to comprehend the message. I'm going to ask questions because I'm not coming in there in charge. See, I'm not in control. Like we talk about all the time. If you try to control it, you cannot serve it. If you try to serve it, you cannot control it. So I'm not going to control somebody else's assembly. Even if, see, a lot of y'all walk in, see, man, that's church stuff. It's stupid. Y'all all this. Yeah, obedience is better than sacrifice. No, hush your mouth and be obedient. The same way you're going to be obedient to the Most High outside the church, be obedient. You're supposed to season your words. So when you walk into somebody else's territory, it's not yours. You need to be in it, but you can't be of it. So if I walk into a store, I'm not going to sit up there talking about I'm sovereign, I shouldn't be paying any taxes. If the store is connected to the government, then I've got to pay taxes on the stuff that I buy because I'm in somebody else's environment. But when I come out of it, I'm coming out into a place that I don't get taxed. Right? If I go in prison, right, I'm going to preach the word. I preach the word behind bars. If I go into jail, I'm going to preach the word. I preach the word behind bars as a free man and somebody who wasn't free, right? But it didn't mean that if there were people out there who were killing folk and shiving everybody or whatever, I comprehend that that's also part of the code. So if you're in there long enough, you better make sure that you get yourself a shiv, and you better be ready to protect your life. Don't go in there talking about turning the other cheek. That's not the code there. Do you hear what I'm saying? And I'm sorry if you don't like that. Oh, well, you just said keep it everywhere you go. Yeah, I keep code. I'm not going to be anybody shiving anybody else. But I guarantee you, if somebody comes to me, I'm going home and I'm going to see my family. So if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. Right? If somebody comes after my children or my wife out here, hey, I'm ready to die if necessary. So if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. It's going to be me or you. When I was in the military, send you overseas. Hey, I'm trying to get back home. So look, both of us were sent out here by wicked and corrupt corporations. Either way, both of us trying to make it home. Which one are going to be? See, if I'm in a wartime situation, we don't keep the same code. That's how I know when these sisters be telling you all the stuff that just happened to them and them getting touched and raped and nobody caring about it. I know that because when I was over there, you see weird stuff. You know, I might have been a little baby, at the time, like in my teens and stuff, but you see weird stuff and you go, oh, what's going on with that? What's going on with that? And then you realize as you've been in a long time, oh, they were doing that. They were really doing stuff like this. Oh, wow. So when I hear stories or weird stories, I'm like, yeah, I can believe that because I know over there, they don't keep that code. But see, over there, you're supposed to be a slave. Just go ahead, come over here, be willing to die for us, and make sure that and then if you make it through that, we'll give you a little bit of something for your trouble. That's really not worth you losing a limb or anything. But hey, you might not have to work another day in your life or something like that. See, when you go into different places, you're not of that system, but you're in it. Be prepared. That's why when you go into your job, you don't be jealous, but realize that there are jealous people there, and there are things that will actually serve jealous people. So you yourself better know how to make sure that you can circumvent the jealousy. Right? When your children go to school and they start wearing shirts that say that they're of the Most High, that's going to be offensive to people who are in the school. It's not offensive to have men come there dressed as women, make sure that they have horns in their head, wear no underwear, and be able to read stuff. I know that's not every single one of them, but I'm saying that's stuff that happens. But that's not as offensive as your child speaking the word. So if your child is going to be sent to school, be ready to have something in place to deal with that, because school is teaching a whole different code than you are. Make sure when they go in there, they're not of it. So when they leave, they won't be of it. What the problem is you think because you told your child, I love you in the rising, you ate with them a little bit for dinner, and you said, I love you, and you read a story with them at night, that's going to circumvent 8-9 hours a day of somebody giving them their code over and over and over and over and over again. Even the Christian schools, even the private schools. That's why school was not a thing that you thought it was until I keep trying to say the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, until the Rockefellers started giving you all that. And they gave it to your children specifically for making sure that they would learn their code so that they would think it was more important to have a job than to be in their work. See, they taught you to work a job until retirement and then start thinking about your purpose. But see, in our culture, you're supposed to know your work so that you would never have a job and always be in your purpose. Ooh, that's great. Holy Spirit, let me rewind that. All right, let's try that again. Hey, they taught you that you were supposed to have a job and toil and retire so that then you could try and figure out what your purpose was. But we're supposed to make sure that you're in your work from birth and teaching you so that you'll never have to toil and have a job, something that you'll never retire from. One more time. Okay, let's try it again. Right? They taught you. I don't know if I can do. You see, my voice is gone. I'll try it. Right? They taught you that what having a job. You were supposed to have a job and toil until that's what school taught you. You're supposed to have a job and toil until you retired, so you can start thinking about your purpose. When the reality is, you were supposed to be taught your work so that you would never have a job to toil, so that you would always be in your purpose and have something you could never retire from. Hallelujah. Right? That's what you were taught. You were taught it was important to get 6 figures so that then at some point you could be on vacation your whole life, and maybe on vacation somewhere you might think about your purpose, outside of getting drunk, high, smashing people, all this stuff. Sorry if that's very vulgar language for you, but that's how people be thinking out here, right? Let's just address stuff for what it is today. Let's peel off that church face and throw that to the side, take your mask off, and let's get into this for real, right? Like, you were taught to do all this stuff that wasn't there. You were taught money, power, and sex. Matter of fact, you were taught all these rap songs you like: money, power, and sex. You were told that that all that matters was getting money, power, and sex. And even when you got married, right? I'm gonna have sex with somebody who got money and power, or helps me to get money and power, allows me to have money and power. Like, and you never know who these people are until they have access to money. You want to know who somebody really is? You want to know if somebody lives the code? Give them money, give them power, give them sex, or give them access to it, and see what they choose to do. I mean, Lil' Kim can be a great example, sure. That's why some people never learn who they are, and it's designed, to work you till you drop dead. Right? This is why it says, is it John 10:10? Hopefully that's correct. Right? The enemy cometh but to steal, kill, and destroy. That's what the enemy does. That's what your life is supposed to be in this system. The enemy only comes but for 3 reasons: to steal, to kill, and destroy. And technically, he only had to steal that much because we just sign our stuff away. But he's not satisfied with just stealing. Real talk, right? He's not satisfied with just stealing. He got to kill you, but then he's not satisfied with just killing you. Then he got to destroy you. That means that there needs to be nothing that we can ever go back to again to say we can trust you. I told you all this stuff was happening. I had already had in my mind, the enemy had already shown himself in Kanye. Remember, like Kanye, he having mental health issues or whatever. Like Kanye was black. Cool. Oh, wow. Jesus walks. Cool. Okay. Maybe Kanye is coming into some stuff. Nope. Just selling records. All right. Well, Kanye, he's going through depression. Nope. Hey, just buy from me. Okay. Kanye, he's out here trying to make sure he's doing stuff for brothers and sisters to come together. Nope. Make America great again. Kanye is out here trying to do business and he wants black people to come behind him. Nope, Kim Kardashian. Kanye was divorced. He's worried about his daughter, this and that or whatever. And hey, all these white women out here doing this. Nope, married another white woman. Kanye out here, he's getting conscious. He's telling some truths. Yeah, he's going to be out here. He's going to help to lead us down the Hebrew path and all this. And here comes Kyrie and all this stuff. Nope. Like, I just was saying, I'm jealous of them. I want to be like them. Right? Right? Kanye throwing out bars, but not showing you that Kanye, right? Kanye. So whenever Kanye says anything, we actually say Khan no, because we say in Hebrew Khan is yes. Therefore, we Kanye, yes, yay, we know who you are. Like that's who Kanye is. Right? Like he went to you guys' churches and told y'all he was saved. Never gave you any kind of testimony that was valuable, but he kept telling you he was saved and he had changed and he had done this and he has all. And look, I listen to some of the music; it's great stuff, right? A lot of it is stuff repeated and just remixed, but a lot of great stuff. But guess what? He went to those churches and he said, "Hey, y'all gonna have to pay tickets to come and hear me talk about a testimony, and you're gonna have to pay for my items. My items are gonna be like $300 or so, but you're sewing into me. I'm a new Kanye. I've changed." I'm not even going to change what it looks like. It looks like all the brand and stuff that I make anyways. Yeah, people were paying money to hear Kanye talk about his testimony. He was putting on concerts when he went to Joel Osteen's church, and many churches, by the way, not just Joel Osteen. And all these people had him up there everywhere he went. He was putting on concerts. People had to pay, just like they pay. Like some places you give donation. We only receive donations, right? You always hear us talk about donation. A lot of churches, they were saying, no, you got to pay this much money to be able to come. Now you can say suggested donation in the sense like we do, but with our suggested donation, it's literally suggested, right? Like if you can't do it, you can't do it sometimes. We let you do what you're supposed to with that, right? But they were like, no, you're going to pay $300 to see Kanye tonight. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And I can't wait. People were sitting there. I can't wait. Conned by Ye, right? You said yay to the con because all of a sudden you came up in there and you were saying yes to the con. You were saying yay to the con. You were one with the sept, but it was a bad concept because the sept came from a bad precept, a bad environment. And now here you are with the wrong idea coming from somebody's ideology where they're bringing capitalist society in, saying that everything that I'm doing is even in capital. So even if he really honestly meant what he meant, he hadn't been around yet. That's why Paul tells you in the Bible, right? Paul or Paval, however you want to pronounce it, Paul, some people say, but Paul tells you specifically in the Bible, he says, hey, don't make novices leaders. Stop making people who have no experience lead you. Stop looking to people who are giving you fables, not because they even intend to, but because they don't know what they're talking about yet. They literally just were born again. They just started drinking milk, and you out here asking for them to stand over stoves and make you a 5-piece, a 5-course meal. This is a 1-month-old baby in this. And you're asking for them to tell you about the word of Yah. That's why in our culture, rabbi or rabbis are not supposed to be any younger than 30 years old. You cannot be a rabbi until you're at least age 30. Right? You've been deceived. You've been bamboozled, run amok, led astray. Right? Right? It's you're not able to handle certain things until you're at least age 30. Now, some of you aren't even 30 in the spirit. Because these rabbi or these holy men, if you will, these holy women, they're supposed to be these things since they are children. So sometimes, people say this saying all the time. We're going to modify this a little bit for those of you who are learning this code. You hear people say that the greatest trick of the devil is to show that he never existed. You say, and it's non-tax because churches are non-profit. There you go. So he didn't have to worry about taxes. He knows the code, right? You heard people say that the greatest trick of the devil is to say that he's never existed. The greatest trick of the devil is to get you to believe that he cannot show up where you show up. May I give you some code today that will bless you if you will use this in your life and look for this in your life? The devil can show up where you show up. And how you doing, Dark Dog? Thanks for being on. Yep, they got all that money. Yep. What did I just say to y'all? The devil can show up where you show up. You don't believe it. So you think when you go to your church or you go to your building, or even when we come together on here, you guys see people that pop up in the chat. That's why even when we're doing our events and we start meeting together, we start having these Zoom meetings and meetups and all this stuff. You see, I'm very protective over where we meet up and very secretive until the end. And everybody's like, tell us this and tell us this. Not everything is for them. It's not for them to know the mysteries of the kingdom, because I know the devil can show up just like we can show up. And I know the devil can be in your ranks just like, and I know somebody can be the greatest advocate for us and all of a sudden turn around and allow a doorway and somebody be there. You've always got to be willing. That's why you got to check me and everything that I say and do. Study it to make sure that what I'm saying is approved, and then or that you can see it's approved in your life. Then bring it before the Most High to see if you should live it, that you can be a workman or a workwoman that needed not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. In the book of Job, or what you call the book of Job, in the book of Job, it tells us specifically that the conversation that happened between the Most High and the devil was not in hell. It was not on earth. It was not in a worship service that was on earth. The devil had the conversation at a worship service in heaven. Yeah, show up, copy it, modify it so he can patent it and he'll use it against you. You said one church you went to, your daughter would cry, like scream in the van, and the van would come pick you up when she was 7. Because babies are sometimes even able to pick it up even more because they don't have a lot of the baggage we carry. Right? Like if my son starts telling me he ain't feeling something, like I know this real quick. If my son says, Dad, why we always have to be around so-and-so? He sees stuff I don't see. You know, my wife is very intuitive too as well. But I'm talking about babies, they have intuition that hasn't been bred out of them yet, spiritually. Right? But so this conversation they had, it was in heaven. And Yahweh even says to him, devil, what you doing here? Devaluer, what you doing here? What you doing here in this worship service? I mean, you welcome to come because you can't stop nothing by showing up. But at the same time, like, why you even come? This ain't for you. And he said, what you been doing? And he said, man, I've been walking around looking to and fro who I may devour. So if he could show up now, we know after Revelation chapter 12, he cannot show up anymore in heaven. But guess what? When he was kicked out and he came down like a bolt of lightning and struck the earth, did he go to hell? Did he go to hell? See, we think that the devil is somewhere that's separate, but the devil or his imps or his influence can be around every corner. Just like the 8-ball in the corner pocket, he can be right there around every corner, waiting for you to just come around and mess around and fall into that hole. Yeah, sometimes we have to speak in parables. Exactly. We have to speak in code sometimes. And we have to recognize that a lot of people will not recognize the code. Do you know how many people heard Yahshua speak in code and yet they still all yelled, crucify him? Because it wasn't for them. His death was for them. And at the same time, it wasn't for them until they got it, right? Even with Peter, who walked with them. Is it Luke chapter 22, verses 31 and 32? Simon, Simon, behold, the devil, the devourer, he desires to have you that he might sift thee as wheat. The devil's right there. You've been walking with me though. Right? Like, can I just be honest? That in of itself in my flesh doesn't make sense without the code. Doesn't make sense because wait a minute, Yahshua, I've been walking with you. What you mean the devil's like desiring to sift me as wheat? I'm with you. Isn't that enough? But then he says in the very next verse, he says, but I have prayed for thee that your faith fail thee not. And when thou art converted, strengthen the brethren. Do you not know it is possible for you to walk with Yahshua himself and still not be converted? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Right? Do you not know? Right? Do you not know that it is possible for you to not comprehend that you might be walking with the Messiah, you might be walking with his people, you might be walking by his statue, but if you're not careful, the devil desires to have you that he might sift you as wheat. So the prayer from the Messiah himself for us was that when we are converted, we can be in in our Bible every day and not know the culture of what we read. We can read Psalm 119 and not realize, if we know what Aleph is, that's verses 1-8. That's the father. And Bet, if we know what that is, that's the son that comes out the right family. That's verses 9-16. And Gamal, that's verses 17-24. That's being humble. And Dalit, that's the door. That's verses 25-32. If we don't know those things, the devil can still have you. You can be reading your Bible diligently, and because you lack code, you lack culture, you lack mindset, you lack appreciation, you lack grind, you lack the consideration, you lack faith even in some things, or you don't have the works that go with the faith, you can easily be in something. So here you are on the earth, and you have people talking about the devil and hell and his imps, and the devil's not even in hell. The devil walks the earth to and fro, seeking whom he may devour. Just because he can't go to heavenly services anymore doesn't mean he doesn't try to come to your services. You have all these services and nobody says the name of the Most High. You know, in our culture, the devil has no name. We don't call him Satan. We'll call him the Satan, the Hasatan, or even the devil. But he has no name because he lost his authority when he's kicked out of hell. But everybody will say his name or try to give him authority where he can still kill and destroy constantly and consistently. But the one who has come that you might have life and have more abundantly, you never say his name. How many church services happen every day where nobody will say his name? How many revivals have happened where nobody will say his name? How many marriages have been prayed over in front of all the witnesses there, and they have kissed and said that we now pronounce you husband and wife in the sight of God? But Elacham, Yahava, Yashva, and even Rafak Hakwadash, may I say, they have never had their name invoked upon your union. How many people have been baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, or in the name of Jesus, but have never been baptized? Atsham Yahava, Atsham Yashva, Atsham Ravak Hakwadash. How many of us have never had his name put upon us and then don't realize that the scripture warned you that we better be careful that we do not use his name in vain? Think about that. See, we got to keep a code, but how do you keep a code if nobody's ever introduced the code? A code that we always say, and we'll get more into tomorrow when we do the Roman code, but a code that we talk about all the time, a part of the code, Romans chapter 10, verses 13-16. Romans chapter 10, verses 13-16, it declares it as such. It says that anyone who calls upon the name, the Sham, the authority of Yahweh, of the Lord, they shall be saved, right? Or really, in that case, it would be more Yashvai, right? But anybody who calls upon the name of Yashvai, Romans 10:9, Romans 10:1, right? Then anyone who calls upon that name, they shall be saved. But then the next part says, but how can you be saved if you don't believe it? And then how can you believe it if you haven't heard it? And how can you hear it if it's not being preached? And how can it be preached if it's not being preached by preachers who are sent by the Most High? For how great and beautiful it is of the feet of those who walk in the way, who walk this path, who walk this way of righteousness. They don't just preach it, but they live it. They've mastered it. They become people where you can see the code in their physical DNA that oozes off of them and some kind of spiritual aura that allows even you to become energetic off of the energy that emanates from the spiritual manifestation of the code being kept that even permeates into your soul. Now, verse 16 says, so therefore, if we're not careful, who shall believe our report? This report is not for everybody. This frequency is not for everybody. This lifestyle is not for everybody. This mindset is not for everybody, right? There will be some who will hear me say something and will literally not even pick up what I'm saying. They will hear me people say a word over and over and over again, but because it's not something they desire to live, they will not do it. There will be some of you who have been preaching something over and over and over again. Find it not strange that just like Isaiah was ignored, find it not strange that just like Moses was ignored, find it not strange that just like Aaron was ignored, like Esther was ignored, some like Ruth felt like she was ignored, like Naomi felt like she was ignored, like many of the people who came before us. Find it not strange that when you live for righteousness, people that are not righteous will not value what you have to say. Oh, that's a word. Hallelujah. Right? Hallelujah. That's a word. And we don't want to hear that word. We don't like that word, but it's real. It's exactly what you need to hear today. It's real. It is real. It is acceptable. How you doing? Thank you, Guap, for being part of the community. Appreciate it, right? It's real. Find it not strange when you start saying, I want to wear myself, that people begin to say, what's wrong with you? Find it not strange when we get things from our own that people try to say you're wrong. Find it not strange when you start saying, I want to speak a language and I want my children to have a language different. And people say that's reverse racism. Find it not strange. It's supposed to be strange. You're supposed to be peculiar, and they're supposed to do to you what they did to the prophets. Why? People don't like that. They're not supposed to. No, in the world, they are supposed to do that to you. That's why we have to have something for ourselves outside of the world. But when we go in it, realize you are a problem. Because if you are a problem, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you are problematic to a system that says that you are supposed to be owned in every way, shape, and form. It's problematic. How you doing, old-headed energy? It's problematic when I tell people, hey, you don't have to sign that document. It's problematic when I say, hey, you don't have to send your child to school. It's problematic if I say, look, if it's difficult to homeschool where you are, you might have to sacrifice and find a way to get your family away from where you are and go to another place where they don't care if you homeschool. It's problematic because when slaves leave the plantation, remember, we talked about this with Africa, whether you believe however many people you believe left Africa and this and that and all that stuff. Remember what I'm saying. And how you doing, y'all's long stands today? Appreciate you. Right. And the wife, if she's listening, and the family, and praying for your business and all the business ventures and things like that. You got to recognize, best to recognize. That's how we used to say back in the day, right? You better recognize, or you best recognize, best to recognize, right? But you got to recognize that you are the enemy to them. Yeah, threat to deeply held beliefs. That's why people get upset with you. They're not upset with you just because they're upset. They're upset because, remember, culture informs your beliefs, and beliefs inform your emotions, right? Now, there's 7 steps to that, right? But remember, culture informs your beliefs, and beliefs inform your emotions. So if culture informs beliefs, when I talk about your belief, I'm talking about your culture. And if I start hitting the nail on the head, if emotions are informed by my belief, then what I'm doing is I'm actually making you emotional about what you believed in, because I'm dealing with your culture that you uphold. So if I'm telling you how the enemy does something and I'm giving you the code, then as a code breaker, as a keeper of the code, as a code keeper, I must realize that I'm keeping something that's going to make somebody say, I'm coming after you because I keep this other code that you're telling the truth about. I'm coming after your phone. I got phone issues all the time. I'm coming after your people, right? Our people are dealt with all the time. I'm coming after your mind, right? People coming after the mindset. I'm coming after your money. People coming after your money, right? I'm coming after I'm coming after your peace. People feeling like they can't have peace in the middle of the storm. I'm coming after your forgiveness. I'm gonna make it hard for you to be able to make sure that you give somebody what you pray for. I'm coming after your mercy. I'm gonna cause you to be a killer of each other while I'm just focused on killing you. You have no mercy towards each other because I've taught you to have no mercy towards each other. But you'll give me mercy all day, every day. That's how you can have Stephen A. Smith make sure that he talks to uplift Jerry Jones, but then tells you guys about, before that, told you guys about Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick needs to be better about presenting himself, while at the same time said he needs to shut up and let other people speak on his behalf. But with Jerry Jones, who was out there, who literally came out there to make sure that a child couldn't get into school, and 5 days prior, people had just done that at another school. So these white boys who came to do that, sorry to use the colonial construct, but that's what it was at the time, that social construct, right? These people came out thinking that black people shouldn't go to white schools. They came out to repeat something that was happening over and over again. And don't forget, that same year, I think just 5 days earlier as well, they had burned those 4 little girls in church. But so you've been taught to give other people passes, while he's out there saying we ain't gonna give it a pass, we're not gonna make it racial. Well, excuse me, Tony Dungy, you don't want to make it about race, but I'll make it about race. Like, he doesn't even realize that he's fighting against his own. He's fighting against himself. But a lot of us are in that situation where we don't recognize it because you've been taught to hate yourself, to feast off yourself. Deuteronomy 28, once again, start reading around verse 54. You'll find that unprepared or tender men start looking at other men and hating them, and start looking at their wives and hating them, and start looking at their children and messing them up. And then the wives who are feeling tender and unprepared and not secure, they start doing the same thing. And then the babies will start doing what they're taught. Willie Lynch said that he would reverse your nature and have it to where men were afraid. and they would be afraid, running behind, scared. And you would have sisters who thought that they were strong and independent, but they ate out of the hand of their master, just like mares or female horses ate out of the hands of the masters as well, or the owners. See, there's a code. We don't even realize when you call yourself savage. Stop calling yourself that. Or if you are, live as a true savage. The word savage or savage means wild. Wild means that you don't fit into civilization. So if you're going to be savage, don't be savage out here acting a fool. Be savage out here because you don't fit in. See, it fits into civilization for Black folk to act stupid. Sorry to say it like that. Sorry, Black folk. Love you. Kemet, love you, right? Yaruba, love you. Ananakaya, love you. Tesalagi, love you. Taino, love you, right? Dominicano, love you, etc. Love you, right? But I'm just being honest. In Western society, it is supposed to be for us. It is civilized for Black people to act stupid. You think that Black people acting stupid is not civilized. It is Western civilization for us to be stupid. And it is harder to be stupid than it is to be intelligent. Or intelligence is bad because intelligence just means the information you have. How about this? It is harder to be stupid. It is more effort it takes to be stupid than it is to live in wisdom. In this society, you are supposed to be a fake person, a stupid person. By law, Black's Law Dictionary, not written by Black people. The person's last name is Black. Black's Law Dictionary, the most highly kept up dictionary used in court today, in the West especially. In Black's Law Dictionary, it says specifically that if you were colored, Negro, Black, or African American, you are considered to be a fake person. You are not real. So people that are not real should not really act like they got sense. It's coded. And we do very well. A lot of us do very well at keeping that code. But when somebody says, be different, be greater, be sovereign, be private, be in the system, but not of it, all of a sudden, everybody got mad stuff to say. All of a sudden, he don't know what he talking about. She don't know what they talking about. All of a sudden, right? She don't know what she's talking about. You got to comprehend. Of the Willie Lynch letter is not even real. All of a sudden in the 1980s, now the Willie Lynch letter was not even real. Been out since 1700s. Nobody had a problem with it. All of a sudden, Black folk. But you know what's interesting? Oh, it also happened in the 1980s. You started calling yourself African American. Never was a such thing. So now you're an African American who's tying yourself to a system and is saying that, hey, there never was really any Willie Lynch letter, which is one step away from saying slavery wasn't really as bad as what they say it was. And then at the end of the day, though, while you're doing that, crack epidemic pops up. 1980s. All of a sudden, there was cocaine everywhere, but they needed to make sure there was something that you could afford. Why? Because they needed to fight what they thought was against their regime. So the wrong people won, right? So they needed to make sure the Contra war was going the way that Reagan wanted it to be, right? So Reagan starts trying to make sure that he gets stuff done in Iran. He started playing y'all with Jesse Jackson and Muhammad Ali out in front, even whether they knew it or not, right? He used them to make y'all think that Iran and everything was going to change and things were working for the better. They were actually making sure that they doing business with Iran and stuff like that. They're then selling drugs simultaneously, making crack, flooding the streets. And then they're using that money once they're killing you off as a people. They're using that money to fight a war that Congress already knew when Reagan was running on Make America Great Again. Never forget, Make America Great Again was the second time somebody ran on that. 36 years prior, Ronald Reagan ran on the same thing. And here he is running on Make America Great Again, killing Black people off, right? What is the definition of an American, by the way? The original definition is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. Not a Black person, not an African American, not a Negro, and not an African American, right? But a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas is the real American, right? But here they are saying "Make America Great Again," just like they did with the Boston Tea Party when they wore blackface of the copper-colored people they killed off and had scalped. They took the things off of the scalp people they did, wore them, put on blackface, put on makeup on top of that, and then threw tea over and said, "We're the Americans." They made America, in their eyes, great. Now here they are again with Ronald Reagan making it great again. And if you didn't get the memo, here's a generation later, because I know it's only 36 years, but 40 years is a generation. So by the time Donald Trump ends his presidency, you have now effectively had 2 generations in a row trying to do what they did at the Boston Tea Party, which is make natives to this land great again, but change who the natives really are in the mind of the people. It's coded. So that's why if they can do all that and be encoded, nobody gonna say a thing, right? Clinton did it, and his wife did it at the same time, right? With the help of Joe Biden, who's now, for those of you who are still Americans and not non-citizen national, or want to be U.S. United States citizens and stuff like that, and keep voting and doing all this stuff. Well, the person that got voted in, and so whether you voted for either side, both of y'all still have to go to the same, because you're not voting for the person, you're voting into the system, right? That's what politics and economics use to control trade and industry wielded by private corporations with owners for profits and not the state. That's what capitalism is. So you voted into that system. So now your president, right? Joe Biden was also the same person that worked with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton to make sure that they made us super predators. And in all the stuff that I just mentioned, did we even invoke the name Yahweh? Of course not, because nobody cared about him, because it was, his name is in vain. His authority is in vain. Nobody wants him to be part of this. You said we should use that there to pay taxes then if we are not real. Once again, if you know how to put the stuff together, it's actually easier than that. Just make sure that you know how to fill out the DS-11 properly, and you don't have to worry about it. Like stuff is out there, but we have to be followers of the law and everything. If you're going to become sovereign, don't get your paperwork done and still keep making sure you deal with all the benefits and privileges of the system. If you are, you have to pay for what you, right? You got to pay at least the taxes. Like some of you shouldn't even know, even if you're paying some taxes, don't pay all taxes. Like, there's codes out there. Once again, codes. There's legal codes out there to say I don't have to pay all taxes. I pay for the taxes that I deserve. So if it's school tax, I'll pay that. If it's taxes for the roads to get paved and stuff like that, especially if I'm voting for the people who are going to pave the roads, I got to pay that. In a sense, if they ever came to me and they were like, "Hey, man, at least pay taxes for the stuff on the road," and I'd be like, "Well, which roads?" If I wanted to really be a smart aleck, well, which roads? But I might just be like, "Okay, that makes sense." Actually, I won't fight that as much as I would fight some of the other things if I was going to go down that route. You said, so what is Kamala's role in making America great again? And Kamala Harris is doing exactly what she's supposed to do. She's actually ahead of schedule. Remember, Kamala Harris was not supposed to be president or the vice president. She ran for president. Remember, Kamala Harris didn't even identify as black. I know she went to a HBCU, but she always identified as Indian, which Indian people technically are African anyways. We're the same family, but whatever it is, the beef there. And now, we were taught by other people there as Indian or black people. We were taught to make sure that we took the four sects of people and now added that fifth sect, SECT, of people, the untouchables, and stuff like that. Okay, I don't know what's going on and all that. But anyway, so but she wouldn't even identify as that, even though Indian people basically they became the next slaves in the Caribbean, and a lot of them don't know where they come from, and they try to go back through slave manifests and stuff like that to find their family members, and therefore go back home to India, like a lot of us try to go back home to Africa to visit where we are, right? But basically, Kamala Harris would not identify as black for the longest time. Kamala Harris. So here's the code. Kamala Harris is somebody, she's supposed to be a black woman that's locking people up before she ran for president, right? Remember, and I'm not trying to say you can't marry a white man or anything like that. I'm just telling you the code. Stay with the context, all right? Kamala Harris' husband is somebody that she marries, right? White guys, stuff like that. She has black slaves, or I'm sorry, black indentured servants who are maids in her house that work for her, maids and butlers and stuff. All of them are black. All the people that come to her house and sit at tables are usually going to be white. She has pictures of this in her house, right? Like literally, she has pictures she's posted and passed. It wasn't until that she was supposed to play her part in running for president that all of a sudden she started changing her tune a little bit. Remember, the whole time she's getting to a place in government where she can do that, she was the district attorney. She's locking black women up and black men up, and black women specifically up for the most part, because they're trying to take their daughters and their sons, and they're lying about their address to get them in better schools. So Kamala Harris was making her name off of making sure that these people were getting locked up, right? All of a sudden, right before, or basically when Black Panther came out, all of a sudden Kamala Harris started saying Wakanda forever. Go look it up. That's the first time. All of a sudden out of nowhere, she was black. Like she was somebody who was talking about Wakanda Forever. Man, I remember that movie Black Panther, and the movie Wakanda Forever. Although I will tell you, it was nice to see us in this and that, and see us presented, even though they didn't really tell the truth about tribes. They just kind of mix and match a lot about stuff and didn't tell you what actual tribes do. But at least we were somewhat shown and seen as powerful and things of that nature, right? But that movie was not something for us either. That movie was not made by us. The comic book was not made by us, and the money did not. Besides the actors and actresses, and maybe some people that work behind the scenes, they didn't much do anything for us, right? Like they didn't use it to be able to make sure that you were taken care of, right? Like so we got $2 billion into Disney's pockets basically. But nevertheless, she started saying Wakanda forever, and even this symbol that you see people do, be careful with that because that's something you don't want any part of. Go do some research. You've even seen people like LeBron James and others do that sign. As much as I think LeBron is a pretty decent guy, I don't know if he knows what he's doing. Maybe he does, but he does that sign from time to time before games and stuff like that as well. He'll do this going into something else. I forget what the last one is. Or no, this is the last one. This is the first one. And remember like what this is in different eras and stuff in different cultures too. And then I forget what the other one is. But anyways, so she started hitting y'all with Wakanda forever. All of a sudden it's time for them to start trying to see who's going to run for president, right? So she's getting ready and ready and ready. She's actually losing, and it's known she's going to lose. They already know that Joe Biden's going to run, right? Joe Biden didn't run when they knew Trump was going to win. Remember that, right? Hillary got sacrificed again. Hillary did terrible the first time going against Obama, right? Then it was like, okay, she's going to go against Trump, but they knew she really wasn't going to do anything. But they were like, hey, we'll at least make it look like that women are part of what's going on, etc. Right? So now, all of a sudden, here comes Biden back after Trump messed it up. They thought Trump was going to get two terms. Trump messed it up so bad. Like he was so out front with it. They didn't think he was going to be that out front. Like he was so out front with it that basically like people couldn't, couldn't, even if they still were closet Trump supporters, they couldn't like bring themselves to admit, out loud and stuff that like, hey, like we got to support this dude. So basically, Biden comes in because remember, y'all didn't even want Biden. Those of you who voted, remember hashtag please don't make me vote for Joe Biden. Y'all wanted Bernie Sanders. And just like Bernie was canceled out by Obama when they wanted Hillary to run, they canceled him out again when they wanted Biden to win, right? And they did both publicly. Both times he was going to run to the end. And they said, no, bro, like it's over. It's done. Like we don't want dissension in the ranks. Okay. So you get to that point, and now they want to make sure once again, though, so they know that she's not going to win, but they want to make sure that we show this black woman on there. This person who identifies as black for the first time, has never been black her whole life, and is locking black people up. And if you don't believe me, there was we have this stuff on wax, if you will, right? There's there's videos really, but there's a video specifically that you can look for to where she is, they're doing their debate or whatever with several candidates that they have trying to get the Democratic nod to run. And there's a Spanish sister on there, and she says, well, you talking all this stuff or whatever, well, could you explain to me why you as a black woman were locking black women up for trying to make sure their children can go to school? And Kamala Harris never answers the question. Kamala Harris never answers the question. She does what many politicians do, right? And she looked bad at it. Right, some people probably didn't care, but she looked pretty bad when she did it. But Kamala never answered the question. Her answer was, how dare you? You don't know what I had to do. The district attorney's job is very sensitive, and I've always worked hard to make sure that people are taken care of. But she never answered the question. Why did you lock black mothers up for trying to make sure that their children had a better chance to be able to be educated like you were educated? And they might actually want to go to a historically black college or university because they actually consider themselves black, and they're not just being able to get a better ride over there or a free ride over there because they got to meet a quota. That was what her question was. She never answered it, right? She fell off at that point. She was done, just like Corey or whatever the guy was that was running, I think, too. Was it the light-skinned bald head guy that was running too? I don't remember his name. But they basically fell off. They were done. All of a sudden, now remember, Joe Biden, he already had his vice president chosen. How quickly we forget, Cory Booker, thank you. Remember how quickly we forget the story of mankind, and his story takes on a whole different meaning, right? Joe Biden's vice president was supposed to be a woman, right? But was not going to be Hillary, right? It wasn't going to be Hillary, but it was going to be another white woman because their goal was eventually at some point we're going to get a white woman in there who's going to be very masculine. So they found another masculine white woman, right? Hillary's more masculine, right? So they found another masculine white woman. And when they found the masculine white woman from or at least she comes off as masculine to me, I don't know. But the masculine, let's just say white woman by colonial social construct, they found her. She was over Minnesota, the governor of Minnesota. She was going to run, right? Like she was going to run. And when she was going to run for president, or vice president, she was going to run with Biden. All of a sudden, she got in trouble when stuff got messed up. They weren't expecting the George Floyd thing. Well, Elizabeth Warren was somebody who's, comes off as masculine woman as well. I'd say she's kind of feminine, though, in all honesty, but she comes off with the masculine presence a lot, right? And that's what they're supposed to do, because you're supposed to be strong, independent. You're not supposed to be protected. Can you lead the country like a man can lead the country? So sometimes it's purposefully they do that as well, right? And it might not be just because of LGBTQ plus. I don't want to make that. I want to make sure I'm very careful that I don't try to automatically put those two together, right? But she's going to run, but the George Floyd thing happens. And remember, when the George Floyd thing happened, the guy who knelt on his neck, they found out, it started coming out. I was telling people this from the beginning, and nobody believed me when I first started saying it. And I think a couple of us were out here saying on TikTok, like, yo, y'all know that George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, they used to work together. And they never liked each other. And Chauvin kept trying to, he always was threatening to fight him and stuff. And they would work in the same club as bouncers. And he would always try to find George Floyd somehow. So, and Chauvin, before the governor who was going to run with Biden, Chauvin had actually been in trouble while she was the DA. And right, so a lot of women become DAs first before they hit governor or before they go to the next level. So Chauvin had been in trouble 13 times under her watch as the DA for either, and not only with just black folk, with people, period. But he had been under her watch 13 times coming to court. And all 13 times, whether he killed somebody or whether he just hurt somebody or just did something straight illegal, she always supported him. So when people found out and started to come out, oh, wait a minute. So if you had just locked Derek Chauvin up and taken away his right to be a police officer years ago, George Floyd wouldn't have been killed. They had to hide that real quick, and they couldn't have it attached to Biden in any way, because Biden, once again, supposedly chose, now we know his handlers chose, but Biden supposedly chose her to be in charge with him, or to be the vice president. If something happened to him, he was saying she could take leadership of the country. So what happens? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, you hear her, the person who was over Minnesota, she goes, or the governor, she goes, oh, I'm going to decline the opportunity. I was going to run, but I just want to make sure stuff is right with family and all the stuff that's going on in Minnesota and in Kenosha and all these places. We want to make sure that things are going well. So, we see the Milwaukee Bucks are not responding well to things, all this other stuff. Remember the Bucks were going to pull out of the, well, even though that was off of another killing, I guess. But remember, they weren't even going to play in the bubble, right? Like all these people were affected. Kyrie was trying to get players to not even play that year. Like it was a big deal, right? So she just comes out all of a sudden, unprompted, so to speak, but we know she had that teleprompter. That's how they make their speeches, no matter how great a speaker they are. And she comes out with that teleprompter and she basically says, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to I'm just not going to worry about running right now. I need to take care of family and take care of the state. And then she even says in that speech, she says, I think that we should have a black woman run for vice president. As soon as I heard that, I told everybody Kamala Harris is going to run. She's going to be your next vice president. They were already going to make sure that Biden was going to be in to make, because Trump messed up so bad, Biden was going to take his place, and they were going to have a woman be the vice president, get back on track with what they were trying to do with Hillary in the first place, even though she never became the vice president, but she became the head of state or whatever her title was, right? Or the state, what do you call it? Sorry. Yeah, head of state, whatever it was. Right. So they were getting back on track. Hillary had messed up so bad in trying to run for president, people were uncomfortable and they knew about the Clintons and the evil they were doing. And even Bill Clinton, remember when she was running against Trump, Clinton messed it up, Bill, by coming out, because at first they were trying to be apologetic. And even she was trying to say, well, yeah, maybe my husband messed up in the way that he dealt with stuff and the 3 strikes and you're out and all that other stuff. And then Bill one time just freaks out. I think it was over in Cali. And he just goes straight up like, yo, look, I locked up criminals because they were criminals. That's what they were. And that's it. Then he stormed out. And Cass was like, yo, he just, so people were catching on. So to get things on track, or to get things even more on track, and to get you to be like, oh, well, we're actually doing it right, they said, oh, let's let a Black woman run for president. Then they went to what? Kamala Harris. Now, remember, Kamala Harris is quoted. That's why the woman I talked about, the Spanish sister, who said, why were you locking up Black women who were trying to make sure the children were getting better opportunities? That's why the Spanish woman thing is relevant, because the reason why the Spanish woman said what she said that was running is because Kamala Harris had just finished talking about how racist Joe Biden was. She was like, you shouldn't ever even think about voting for Joe Biden. She was like, hey, Obama did whatever, but at the same time, let's be honest, Joe Biden was racist. And she started naming all the stuff from the 70s and 60s that Joe Biden was doing that was racist. Meanwhile, the Spanish woman says, well, if we're going to talk about how racist Joe Biden is, right? Okay, sis, we're going to talk about how racist Joe Biden is. I'll give you that. But why were you locking up your own sisters? And that's when she couldn't answer. But the same Kamala Harris, who was busy telling y'all how racist Joe Biden was, all of a sudden came on and said, we're going to make change. We're going to do this. We're going to make sure things are together. We're going to do it. And then when they won, she said, we did it, Joe. We did it, Joe. Y'all remember? That's what everybody tells me she said. I've never even seen the video, but everybody keeps saying that she said, we did it, Joe. And the only right, so it's a systemic thing. See, once again, she considered herself to be Indian. She didn't consider Black people to be on her level from how she was taught. She was okay with that being the case until she ran for president. Remember, she's dealing with the sect, the classism thing that even happens in the Caribbean today and the islands today, to where you have people like my maternal grandmother is somebody, if you look at her picture and look at the Queen of England when she was young, you think they're the same person. Right? Like, colorism is something that's wild. And she was raised in it, but she knew when she needed to be Black all of a sudden. She never cared about being Black. She never wanted to be Black. She has Black people that work for her. Blacks are supposed to be slaves in her house. Like, that's the way it works in her house. But all of a sudden, because of that, and what I'm saying is that's code. See, she should have never fell for the okie though, because once again, the further back we go, the Blacker we all get, because the more one we all become. So who cares what color you are, as long as you're living by the truth? That should be the cry. But see, they don't like it when you say that, because it's supposed to be what? The whiter we are, the better we are. That's what the West taught. That's what Willie Lynch taught. It's foolishness. Colorism is foolishness, right? To look at one person and say, because you light-skinned and you dark-skinned and you in the middle and you mahogany and you're ebony and you red bone and you redwood and you blacker than the ace of spades. It's foolishness. But somebody put that code out there, and that's what we look for. Right? That was a code. Yeah, Black was always beautiful. The only reason why Black people, right, well, I'd say because we called ourselves Black for the longest time, I had no problem with it, right? So I know some people, especially our Moorish brethren, say, don't call yourself Black. Don't on paper call yourself Black if you're in the West, sure. But we've never had a problem with who we are, right? But Black has always been beautiful. The only reason why the diaspora talks about being Black so much, when people say, why they always talking about Black? I'm Black and I'm proud, and I'm Black. I'm Black, y'all, and I'm Black, y'all, and all this about being Black, and I need to be a Black queen. What if I was a white queen and all this stuff? And I don't like the Black girl train. It separates. No, the reason why we're saying this is because so much damage was done that was traumatic. See, that's part of the code that they don't want you to talk about. But see, there was trauma. Part of their code was the trauma code. Right? It's traumatic to tell a group of people over and over again for generations that because they have a certain color skin, because they have hue, it's traumatic to say that you need to beat them to the white meat shows, because their psychologists, literally the psychologists over this system, were telling people, hey, beat them into the white meat shows because their blackness is an indicator that they are crazy, that they are bad mentally, that they have mental health issues. So if you beat them to the white meat shows, it's a sign that the purity is trying to come out. And therefore, when the black scars come over him, remember the black scars are really just an indicator of the white purity that you tried to beat into them. What about drapetomania, which literally says that if a black person tries to escape slavery, they have a mental health issue? It is crazy. Just like if black people today, like the house Negroes of today, if you come to them and you say, hey, let's come together, let's separate, let's make sure that we have something for ourselves so that we can look others eye to eye rather than always having to live underneath, they'll say, what, separate from this good slave master? From America? Where else you gonna find a better job in the house than this? Where else you gonna find a better plantation to live on than this? I mean, heck, this is the Bronx, this is Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? This is Staten Island. This is Manhattan over here. Right? Where you gonna find something better than this? Where you gonna find somebody where else to play basketball? This is the Garden. You see, this is the plantation right here. Boss, what's the matter, boss? We sick? That's Malcolm X, right? I'm taking from his speech, right? Somebody caught on that, right? What's the matter, boss? We sick? Not are you sick? Are we sick? If the master's house caught on fire, the house slave, the house Negro, he fought harder to put the blaze out than the master did himself. As Malcolm X said, I said he fought the blaze out. He fought to put the master's house out, the blaze out better than the master himself, because he was more invested in the master's house, because guess what? The master's house was the only thing that made him stand out from the slave. If the master's house burned down, guess what? The master was still white. But if the master's house burned down, he was just like his black brethren, which meant that he was going to basically have to live like them. So the only thing to keep him disconnected was to make or keep him in a different place. The only thing to keep him in a different place, a different mindset, was what? Was to keep the master's house in order. Right? And for a lot of people, the only thing that gives you what you have is the code to keep up their code. If you don't work in their corporation, what are you? I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm not saying just because you're a house Negro. Hear what I'm saying? It has been set up in our minds. If I don't get their degree, what am I? If I don't leave my community, if I don't turn the ghetto, right? If I don't stay and try to turn the ghetto and the mindset into a kingdom, right? If I don't leave the ghetto and go into his place, if I don't leave the place that's mid, we doing all right, but we ain't really poor, but we ain't really doing nothing of value. If I don't leave that situation and leave that neighborhood, if I don't keep teaching the truth where I am, if I don't make sure my family hears it, if I don't just separate from them and say, hey, I'm better than them, then what am I? If another community doesn't say that I'm not there. You said, do you think that's why so many black men marry white? Well, yeah. In essence, same Malcolm X I was using as an example, taught us that sometimes what is one of the things that black men try to do more than anything else. For the longest time, our people weren't allowed to, weren't allowed to stop our sisters from being our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers, etc., from being raped, and therefore, some of us are even the evidence of it in the different one drop rule and all this stuff and colorism and all this stuff that exists. So Malcolm X said sometimes the greatest thing that we do is try to get our hands on the white man's prize. Do I believe there's a require above the earth that Elohim created? I sure do. Right? I don't go by firmament. Firmament is the name of a Greek god, which is what they do with most of the planets and the stars and all that. Is part of somebody's theology and or religiosity. It's not part of mine. Yeah. But it's something that's there. And I'm not the person to tell you that you can't marry somebody white, or you can't marry somebody black, or you can't marry somebody, if you're Chinese, you can't marry somebody Japanese. If you're somebody who's Irish, you can't marry somebody English. I'm not here to do that. Right? That's not what I'm here to do. What I'm here to tell you, though, is we don't know culture. If you're going to marry, at least know culture. At least make sure that when something happens, y'all speak the same language, and we don't do that. Even if we're both Black. And what happens is what's happening with a lot of us is we're starting to awaken of certain things that happen, and we're starting to live differently. And because we're living differently, don't forget this as we get ready to take our leave for today, and then we'll come back in front of you guys later this evening. Never forget this, Yashda, right? Never forget this, Yashda, right? Right? Never forget this. Even though, hear me and hear me well, even though, how do I say this? Because it's time for us to take our leave for real, for real. I'm trying to figure out how to say this quickly. I don't even know if it can be said quickly. It's about culture. At the end of the day, this is what's happening, okay? The reason why if you learn truth, hear me, especially people who are married or people that have family or people that have community that you're caring about, and you learn that you've been in something that you should have never been in it. Remember that you used to be of that same mindset, right? And it's going to be difficult to hear. But when you were sitting up there talking about Jesus, 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 or when you were out there talking about God this, God that, or when you were out there talking about the church this and you didn't know what cirque was and all this stuff, did people who knew the truth, did you hang around them? Did they hang around you? Even if you wanted to, were you really able to hang around, but so much? It became more difficult, didn't it? And this is part of the code. It's going to be hard to keep the code, but you can't keep the code if you're always around people who don't keep code. Hear me and hear me well. I know you're not going to like this. Something in your flesh might already be fighting against it. I know, I get it. I don't even like it as I'm saying it. That's why you notice I'm trying to make sure I say it even in the way I conceive it, because I got to see it first before it can even be received. Right. But hear me and hear me well. When you start going by the code, exactly, you are the company you keep. You are what you eat. Right. When you start going by the code, it's going to be harder for those relationships to last. Right? When you were Christian this, Christian that, Christianos, this and that, whatever, Roman Catholicism, all this stuff, God is love, and you didn't even know what that meant. You didn't know Yahweh, Achaba, and all this. When you thought Genesis, you didn't know what Barashat was. You thought about firmament, you didn't know what Arakwai was, right? You knew about Lord God, you didn't know about Yahweh Elacham. Like there were a lot of these people, right? You never talked to. I was listening to somebody yesterday. I'm not a Republican or Democrat, by the way, so this is not about that. But I was listening to a brother yesterday. I forget where he ran, but he ran for governor, ran for mayor or something like that. He lost. And when he lost, he was at a table, and these two women who were Democrats, they recognized him, right? They were black, I believe, and he was black, right? But black people, if they become Republicans, we automatically just eviscerate them. All right, we call them sellouts and all that when both of them are two sides, both parties are two sides of the same coin. Nevertheless, he's sitting there and they're having a conversation, and he starts saying, well, how do you feel about Governor so-and-so that you voted in for? And they did blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, I didn't like blah, blah, blah. He said, well, what about what they did with the children and this and this? And they, yeah, I didn't like what he did with the children. He's like, what about, what he did with marriage? And they're like, yeah, I don't like what he did with marriage, blah, 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 blah. And they start having conversation, and over again, they start to realize, that they agree on everything. And he says, I'm the first Republican you've ever talked to, isn't it? Am I the first conservative, and definitely first black conservative, probably the first Republican you've ever really had conversation with like this, right? Well, yeah, I guess so, right? And so the meaning is, like I said, I'm not Republican or Democrat. I'm just trying to show that you will be separated from people that are more like-minded than what you think, right? But also, you don't take time out to talk to people to see where they are and to see if maybe there is more to it, right? And as you keep keeping the code, recognize there are a lot of people who you haven't talked to. There are a lot of people that are in the Yashtel. You saw it too? Yeah. There are a lot of people in the Yashtel. There are a lot of people who know Yahweh, who know Yahuwah, or who know Yahweh, or Yahweh Shai, or Yeshua, or Yeshua, or Ravak HaKodesh, or Ruach HaKodesh. A lot of people who know Yashua HaMashiach. A lot of people. Oh, wow. Thanks for noticing, babe. I didn't even see that. Thank you for the likes. Appreciate it. Thank you for the likes, the shares, all the great stuff. And we appreciate you. We're getting close to our shout out at the end. Or we're jamming. We're jamming in the name of the Lord. I want to jam it with you, right? Like people have known this stuff for a long time. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind, have no fear of atomic energy, right? Because none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets, right? While we stand aside and look. Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing? He's talking about what? These songs of freedom, freedom. Because all I ever had, redemption, redeeming. And who did he quote in that? He quoted the prophet Marcus Garvey. You see what I'm saying? People been speaking this. We just didn't know the code. They were telling us code for a long time. You know what I'm saying? They've been telling us. So what happens though, what did a lot of people used to say? It's interesting. You know what Bob Marley, oh, it's 11:11. Thanks, babe. I see it. You know what Bob Marley, a lot of people didn't even mess with Bob Marley if you were black. A lot of black people did not mess with Bob Marley when Bob Marley was popular. Just like a lot of black people didn't mess with Jimi Hendrix when Jimi Hendrix was popular. Now we're coming to our senses and being like, yo, they had some great stuff out there. Bob Marley was an African hero. Did y'all know that? Like they asked Bob Marley, I forget what nation it is. Somebody, if you want to look it up for me real quick, they asked Bob Marley, there was a nation that got its freedom when they got out of bondage from Europe. And guess who they invited to make sure that they basically had sing and pray and launch them into what was coming up? They invited Bob Marley. It was Zimbabwe. Thank you. I couldn't remember, right? And this is a couple times, few times this happened with them, where countries would literally be like, we're going through something. We need you to come over, Bob Marley, and bless us with a word. And he would come talking about Jah, come talking about redemption, right? Right? I mean, he was coming over with a message. He was coming singing your words, singing your language, singing praises to the same Yah. Yeah, it started to rain almost immediately. As soon as it started to happen, the rain started to pour down, and they kept on going, and they praised Jah, or they praised Yah all through the night. Your people know who they are. Kwam Yastel, come on up, rise, right? Rise up. But what I'm saying is, when you learn more of this code, you're going to realize that you can't hang around the same mindset that you used to have. Why? Because like we talked about a while ago, you can't take new wine, a new mentality, a new value. Wine is valuable. Wine is going to start as juice, but it's going to mature into something that lives and moves and has, right? Lives, moves, has its being, right? So you're not going to be able to take this new wine that's going to mature. Once I was a child, I spoke as a child, I acted as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. If you're going to live this code, there's going to be a lot of people that break code. So you're becoming the code breaker to be able to break away from their code. There's a lot of people who they break code. They break anything that is going into the code you're headed into. You got to figure out which one you are. Are you going to be a code keeper? Or in a negative sense, are you going to be a code breaker? And that means some of the people that you love so much, there might be a season where you can't love them the same. Doesn't mean you can't love them, but you might not be able to love them the same in this season coming up. See, this year, 2023, we're going to look beyond what we see. See, you could have the same DNA. That's what we talked about a while ago. You could be Israel, 100% Israel in the DNA, but be a half-breed, a dog in the spirit. And it's going to hurt. You're going to have to press and strain past that. But in 2023, look beyond what you see. There's something greater coming. There's greater deliverance coming. There's greater passion coming. Right? There's something greater waiting on the horizon. Are you ready for it? Are you ready? Are you ready, Yasta? Are you ready to rise up? Right? If you're ready to rise up, be ready, because guess what? See, watch this. If you're coming out of water, y'all know this already. You know about the natural code. You know about natural law. If you're coming out of the water, if you go to the pool today and you start to rise out the water, what's going to happen to the water that's on you? It starts to fall off. If you're going to break out of the water, You got to realize that there's going to be water that falls off. If when you jump into your shower, if you haven't done so already, when you jump in to take a shower, guess what's going to happen? As the water begins to hit you, dirt has to come off. When you start to become clean, the word clean meaning legal, when you start to clean some things up, make some things lawful in your life, guess what? The unlawful, the dirty, it has to go down the drain of despair. But it's not your despair, it's the despair of the enemy, that everything that he's catching, it's not part of you anymore. It's just the unclean things that are falling off. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for that? I'm not 100% sure. There are people that say that he was killed off, and that some people believe that they, hit him with the cancer. And really, I think what messed up Bob more than anything else, in all honesty, I think they should have just let him keep smoking weed. Probably should have ate his edibles. That in of itself, right? But once again, we don't have knowledge. So even in those who are Rastafari, and I have family that's Rastafari, right? But even in those who are Rastafari, like they didn't realize back then that it wasn't just something that induced you or allowed you to go to a place of what they thought was worship better. Like they used to literally pray over the weed. Like a lot of people just smoke weed. Like if you Rastafari and you have weed, like not all Rastafari smoke weed. They might eat it or they might not even eat it at all, right? There's different belief systems even in that, like there is anything. But they actually pray over it and all this stuff because they believed you were about to have a spiritual experience and it was helping you, just like the peace pipe in other cultures and other tribes, right? It was something that was supposed to be helping you to get to another level. Or some tribes even use psychedelics and things like that. I don't really get into all that. I know some people have told me I should try it out. you know it is what it is. But you know I'm still studying. Let me just say it like this: I'm still studying it. I'm not ready to do all that yet, right? But long story short, they had different beliefs as far as how to get there, right, into things that might be natural. Okay. And so, but yeah, like if they had probably just let him eat some marijuana, like, and he had real marijuana, like not a lot of the fake stuff that we're doing now, weren't really doing that yet, he'd probably still be here. But you put him in chemo and you don't allow him to smoke, like what they call sickness, he probably had a whole lot of his life. And if you study his life, I promise you, like if you study his life, he was smoking a little less. All of a sudden, something he probably was being healed from constantly and consistently, even if it was in him, he probably stopped getting healed from him when he stopped smoking as much. Next thing you know, now he can't smoke at all. And all of a sudden, his locks fall out because he got chemo. And when he saw his locks fall out, that's strength as well. So when people say once his locks fell off, basically he gave up. Once he saw his locks were gone, the thing that everybody makes fun of when we keep him and everything. Once his locks fell off, they said he gave up. They said he didn't have strength anymore. He kept saying he was weak. It's culture. See, so as we live this and as things start falling off you, as you're going to come into your community, as you're going to come into more of a mindset, if you're going to come into more of a oneness with each other, just be ready for some things to fall off. And as things fall off, some of those things might be relationships, right? And people don't like it when relationships fall off because it means they can't, like, watch this. If you eat, last thing, I promise, we got to take our leave for real right now, because I actually got some meetings and stuff too to get ready for, and we got to make sure that the newsletter is finally out. Pretty much putting finishing touches on it yesterday. We got to make sure we post it for y'all. But if you have a parasite, you know what's going to happen if a parasite, if you have somebody hanging on to you, right? If you had a parasite, if you have something hanging on to you, right? If you have a parasite, if you have something hanging on to you, you hear what I'm saying? It's living off you. What is a sign that the parasite is either going to have to die or is going to have to leave your body? What is a sign? It needs a host, right? But what is a sign that that parasite is not going to be able to use you as a host anymore? Fever might be a sign. What else? That's a sign that you might have a parasite, but even it might be a sign it's being released. Yeah. So what are some signs that a parasite's about to leave? See, the Most High is about to have some parasites leave your life. What are some signs? Fever, vomiting, pain, sickness, illness, right? It's taking too much. You feel weak, sudden muscle fatigue and nausea, withdrawal symptoms and things like that. Yep. Same thing, like people that are starting to have less and less drugs. See, because that's what the parasite is having. The parasite, you are the drug. And so they're having issues and they'll start doing things like, those of you who crave sugar, if you have a parasite that craves sugar, it will actually send messages to your brain to say like, hey, I'm gonna give you a headache if you don't give me sugar. So your pain, because a parasite has a symbiotic relationship, it wants to become one with you, it wants to be married to you. And if you don't feed it what it needs, if you're not giving it nurturing or nurturing it, if you're not giving it affection, if you're not making sure it feels secure, it lashes out. Right. So if you starve it, if you fast, it lashes out. If you are addicted to food and you don't eat three meals, two snacks, midnight snack on top of that, desserts, all this stuff, little something to get you started in the morning. You work out, so you want to make sure you eat 7 times a day and all that stuff. You're heavy into working out, so you're going to burn it off. You got to have calories to burn off and calories to burn off. Like your body's addicted to food. And when you don't eat it, your body gets weak, just like the enemy, because the enemy has no power over what you don't give him control over. He can't be married to you if you're not signed up for it, if you haven't opened your legs, or if you haven't gone between his, right? So you get this starvation, or you start having certain cravings. You're not even pregnant, but you crave certain things. You haven't even had anything in years, but you know what? The parasite has a symbiotic relationship. It says, oh, I need something. So it sends a signal to the brain. Hey, do you guys, I'm looking for information. Brain, do you know anything that gives me this taste or gives me this thing? And the brain goes, oh yeah, we tasted something like that 5 years ago. Matter of fact, we don't digest that well, so a piece of it's in our gut. Parasite says, ooh, let me look in the gut. Oh, I like that. Sends a signal, say, hey, let them know that we need some of that. And you have this thought. You say, man, I haven't had a taste for cannolis in like 7 years. Right? But I think I'll go give me a canola today. Does anybody even know? You'll go out your way. Now you're researching, you're studying, you're praying somewhat. Man, it would just be so great if I could find a canola. Right? Like you can't even spell canola no more, right? But you gotta have it though. Or you've heard somebody say a cannoli tastes like da da, and your brain remembers. Well, I don't know if I have access to da da da, but I talked to somebody a long time ago. They said the cannoli tastes like so and so, and you go, oh, okay. So you tell the parasite, okay, we got you, and you start looking for whatever it is to give you what it is that you're looking for. You start having dreams about food. Right? You start really like being like, man, what is going on? Like I've got to have this thing, right? Because a baby inside. I'm not saying they are, but a baby inside, in a sense, acts like a parasite, but it's one that you want. So your brain actually shuts off the stuff that says to kill the parasite or to kill the baby. But the baby looks at the body, the woman's body looks at a baby and a parasite both as dangerous. So the woman has to send a signal to her body to say, hey, don't kill the baby. I want that one. I authorize that one. So we need to feed that one. We need to honor that one. Matter of fact, that one feeds from my body, right? Like if you as a sister are pregnant, and if you don't start having calcium, what's going to happen? You're going to start having broken bones. Your teeth will start to fall off, right? If you don't make sure that certain things are there that are great for your skin are there, guess what? Not only will your skin have problems, but now your hair will start to fall out, right? Because there's a symbiotic relationship. So there are signs there that when you get rid of the parasites that you don't want, the people that you're one with that you don't want, because you're not going to be somebody who doesn't follow the code, but you're going to be somebody who keeps code. You're going to be a code keeper. Be ready. Be ready, because when you keep the code 100%, people that don't stay 100 in code, at some point they got to fall off. If we're 95% code and somebody else is 100, there's going to be 5% where we're going to have to fall apart. If we're 50-50 and somebody is 100, guess what? We're only going to be 50-50. That half the time we're not going to be able to stay in line with them. Oh, thank you. Always blessed. Appreciate that. Right. If we are people that keep code 1% of the time and somebody else is keeping code 100% of the time, that means there's going to be 99% of the time that we can't interact. So if you start off to where you're only doing 5% and somebody else is doing 0, hey, it doesn't seem that big a deal. But if you do 10% and they do 0, well, really 0 is 0. It actually gets annoying at any point, right? But let's just say 1%, make it easier mathematically. If somebody does 1% and you're doing 5%, like maybe y'all were both doing 1%, it was easy. But now one person doing 5%, one person doing 1%. Okay, that's 4%. And 5 to 1 out of 5, right? That's only 20% technically. So that means literally like 80% of the time, y'all not going to do the same thing. Now you get to 10% versus 1%. The person ain't changed at all, just doing 1%. You doing 10% of stuff. Well, guess what that means? That means 90% of the time, you guys aren't going to be in the same thing. Whether you get to 50% and one person doing 1%, that means only 2% of the time y'all going to be able to get down. Keep making that go to 99, you're going to have a problem. If you're going to try to hold on to a 1%er and not make sure that you're with somebody who's 100. If you want to keep the code, keep it 100% of the time, but be ready when people who don't keep the code fall off. Paul says it like this. Paul said, those that are supposed to be with us, they will be with us. Those that are not supposed to be with us, they are not with us anymore. Why? Because if I'm going to keep the code, as much as I still have love, Barnabas, and we beefed over something that wasn't even worth beefing over. But as much as I have love, when we argue about keeping the code, I got to keep the code at all costs, even if it costs me familial relationships. All right, that being said, thank you guys. Appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being on. Those who are on YouTube, feel free to look for all the descriptions in or anything that you need as far as information from us. Look in the description box and we'll get back to you ASAP. Thank you so much. We give all honor and praise to Yahweh Elohim in this word. Please study this word and meditate on it, that you will be hearers and doers simultaneously. Thank you, everybody who's on. We appreciate you so very much, and we honor you in everything that you are doing for the kingdom. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. If it's your first time with us, we hope to have you back. If it's one time of many, we hope to have you back. Thank you again to everybody for supporting my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, our website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And for those that need the extra oomph, she has many different tinctures, which are just concentrated natural medicines that she forages for herself and by hand puts together, and can even make things that are specific for you. But she has many different tinctures. The tincture this month is still anxiety release. So if you like that, or many different tinctures, things dealing with hearts, things dealing with, skin, with hair, with symptoms of things that even can be dealing with cancer. She's not somebody who's saying, I'm not talking about her healing or curing something continuously, especially in this platform. That's not what this is about, but just letting you know she might have some information for you that you might want, and maybe to go further than that. Hello, how you doing, Sister Quotatia? Thanks for being on. Quotatia, excuse me. But everybody who's on here, we appreciate you again. We thank you. We honor you. We're excited for what the Most High has in your life. We look forward to you guys. Thank you to those who's taking classes, things like that. Once again, for more information on YouTube, just look in the description. If you're on YouTube with us, we're about to do our shout out at the end, where we're going to ask you to shout out where you're from. Please wait till the music starts playing, so we can make sure that we catch where you are, because we'd like to, if it's all right with you, we'd like to be able to contact you. And once we contact you, we like to be able to make sure that we can have conversation with you, and make sure that maybe possibly we can, even have some stuff on here as far as somebody who's in your area who's like-minded might be able to be around, and maybe it'll be able to help you with some things, and might be able to start forming communities like we're supposed to. Once again, reminder, this Saturday coming up, we're going to have the podcast at 10. This is all Eastern time. Podcast at 10. Right after that, 11 SOC meeting watch party. Everybody invited. We're asking, please make sure you bring the babies out to this watch party of all ages, right? But especially if you can bring them like ages 0 to 14. They'll probably like what they're seeing and what they're hearing, and you'll be surprised yourself at how much great teaching there is now out there now. We'll make sure that we shout out those people that we're getting the stuff from. And then I believe at 12 or 1, I have to double check, we're going to have our Zoom meeting just for people in Georgia. For those who are trying to get together for a meetup in Georgia. The meetup for those in Georgia will be the 28th. I think it's going to be from 2 p.m. Eastern to 6 p.m. Eastern, and we'll give you guys the information as we have it, to make sure that everybody can know where to meet up. And then on the 28th, I think at like 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, or maybe noon, I have to double check, we're going to have our meeting for those that are just in Florida on Zoom. And we're going to keep doing that with different people in different regions. So as people are reaching out at the ministerial staff, for those who have decided that it's okay for them to contact you, as they contact you, text you, email you, or if I text you, email you, if we send you a DM or whatever it is, please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure that we get your information so we can keep in contact with you. All right. So we appreciate you. We honor you. Thank you again, kings and queens. And we look forward to talking to you soon. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, Yahshua, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, You're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Barak Allah Acham Yahweh. May the blessings be upon thee in the name of Yahweh. Remember that you are Barak, that you are blessed. Remember your affirmations, Romans 8:1, Romans 8:11, Romans 8:18, Romans 8:19, Romans 8:28. And do not forget to make sure that as the music starts to play, especially if you're on TikTok, as the music starts to play, please have a mindset to make